They called him the Iron King, Alaric Voss, the man who crushed rebellions with his bare hands and built an empire on blood-soaked stone. But inside his palace walls, a different kind of war was brewing. 5 mistresses, each deadlier than any blade, circled him like predators around wounded prey. When Seraphine Hale walked through those gilded doors, every eye in that vicious court turned cold. She wasn't supposed to survive the first night, but survival wasn't her plan. Conquest was. And before the season turned, someone would die screaming. If you want to see how this palace burns, watch until the end. Drop your city in the comments and smash that like button. The throne room stank of sweat and expensive perfume, and Alaric Voss hated both equally tonight. He sat slouched in the carved monstrosity they called a throne, one leg thrown over the armrest like he was some tavern drunk instead of the man who'd unified 7 kingdoms by breaking the backs of anyone stupid enough to stand against him. 38 years old, scars on his knuckles from the last war. A face that made women wet and men nervous, all hard angles and cruel mouth and eyes the color of winter steel. Right now, those eyes were fixed on the woman kneeling before him, and he was bored out of his fucking mind. "Your Majesty," she simpered, her voice like honey poisoned with arsenic. "I only thought to bring you comfort after the council meeting ran so late." "Lyanna," his voice cut through her practiced words like an axe through rotted wood. "Did I send for you?" The woman, Lyanna Frost, his second mistress, all ice-blonde hair and pale skin that bruised like a peach, went very still. Around them, the evening court pretended not to watch. Guards stared at walls. Minor nobles suddenly found their wine fascinating. "No, Your Majesty, but I thought..." "Thought." Alaric let the word hang there, heavy and sharp. "That's the problem with you cunts. Too much thinking. Not enough shutting the fuck up when a man needs silence." Lyanna's face went white, then red. Her hands, folded demurely in her lap, trembled. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. Because moving meant walking away, and walking away meant losing ground to the others. The others. Christ, the others. Alaric's eyes swept the room without moving his head. He'd gotten good at that over the years, seeing everything while looking at nothing. There, by the wine table, Isolde Crane watched with cat-green eyes and a smile that promised murder. His first mistress. The one who'd warmed his bed before he'd even taken the crown, back when he was just the general who'd won the bloody summer campaign. She wore emerald silk that matched her eyes and showed enough tit to make half the room hard. Near the eastern balcony, pretending to admire the sunset, stood Vivian Locke, mistress number 3. Dark-skinned, dark-eyed, dark-hearted. She came from the southern provinces where they settled arguments with knives and smiles in equal measure. Right now she was doing both, her red lips curved upward, while her fingers played with the ornate blade at her hip. Across from her, practically vibrating with barely contained fury, was Marjorie Thane. Number 4. Youngest of the bunch at 23, all golden curls and big blue eyes that made men stupid. She'd lasted 6 months longer than anyone expected because she'd figured out early that Alaric liked his women angry, gave him something to break in bed. And finally, standing so still she might have been carved from stone, was Alara Venn. Mistress 5. The quiet one. The dangerous one. She never raised her voice, never made demands, never caused visible trouble. Which meant she caused invisible trouble, the kind that ended with people falling downstairs or choking on chicken bones at dinner. 5 women. 5 different flavors of ambition wrapped in silk and perfume. Alaric wanted to throw them all off the fucking battlements. "Get out," he told Lyanna, his voice flat. "Before I have the guards drag you." She rose with as much dignity as she could salvage, which wasn't much, and walked toward the doors. Her spine was straight, but her shoulders shook. Crying, probably. They always cried. The doors had barely closed behind her when Isolde glided forward, her movement liquid and predatory. "You're too harsh with her, my love." The words were sweet, the tone was battery acid. "She only wants to please you." "She wants to displace you," Alaric said. "Same as you want to poison Vivian, same as Vivian wants to gut Marjorie, same as Marjorie wants to fuck over Alara, same as Alara wants all of you dead in a ditch somewhere." Isolde's smile didn't waver. "Such dark thoughts, Your Majesty. Such obvious fucking truths." He stood, and the room tensed. At 6'3", broad-shouldered, and built like a man who'd spent 20 years in armor, Alaric Voss could fill a space just by existing. I'm going to my chambers, alone. If any of you follow me, I'll have that person's belongings thrown into the courtyard and her ass thrown after them. He didn't wait for responses. Didn't need to. They'd learned years ago that when he used that tone, argument meant exile or worse. The walk to his private wing took him through corridors lined with portraits of dead kings, all of them looking vaguely disappointed that their descendant had turned the palace into a god's damned brothel. Alaric didn't give a shit what dead men thought. Dead men didn't have to rule an empire held together by violence and paranoia. His chambers were in the old tower, separate from the main palace. Isolated, defensible. The heavy oak door had 3 locks and a guard rotation that changed every 4 hours to prevent bribes from taking root. Tonight's guard was Marcus, a scarred veteran who'd lost an eye at the Battle of Redmoor and gained Alaric's trust by being too ugly and too married to be seduced by any of the mistresses. "Quiet night, Your Majesty?" "Quiet as a fucking funeral," Alaric muttered, working the locks. "Wake me if the palace burns down. Otherwise, I'm dead to the world." Inside, he stripped off the ridiculous formal coat, red velvet with gold thread, heavy as chainmail and twice as useless, and threw it at a chair. Missed, didn't care. The wine cabinet yielded a bottle of something strong and amber, and he didn't bother with a glass. The balcony doors were open, letting in cool night air that smelled like the sea, 12 miles distant. The capital, Ashmark, sprawled below like a living thing, all torchlight and smoke and the distant sounds of 10,000 people living and fucking and fighting and dying without giving a shit that their king was up here drinking alone. Alaric took a long pull from the bottle and stared at nothing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He'd unified the kingdoms, crushed the rebellions, built roads and harbors, and a merchant fleet that made the empire rich. He'd done everything a good king should do, everything his father, dead 15 years now, had told him a ruler must do. But somewhere along the way, he'd let the palace fill up with vipers. Women who smiled and fucked and whispered poison in his ear while plotting against each other like it was a blood sport. And the worst part? He'd let it happen. Encouraged it even. Because it was easier to let them fight among themselves than to actually deal with the problem. Coward. The thought came unbidden in his father's voice, and Alaric took another drink to drown it. A knock at the door made him turn, tension coiling in his shoulders. "I said alone, Marcus." "Not Marcus, Your Majesty." The voice was unfamiliar, female, young. "There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Tell her to fuck off." "She said you'd say that. She also said to tell you her name is Seraphine Hale, and she's carrying a letter from Lord Castellan Hale concerning matters of succession and treason." Alaric went very still. Lord Castellan Hale. The man who governed the northern territories, where winter lasted 9 months and the people were harder than the frozen ground they farmed. A man Alaric trusted about as far as he could throw a war horse, but who'd never given him reason to doubt his loyalty. Succession and treason. Those 2 words, in that order, meant something very specific in the political language of the empire. It meant someone was dead or about to be. It meant blood in the water. "Send her in," Alaric said, setting the bottle down. "And stay close. If she tries anything, kill her." "Yes, Your Majesty." The door opened. The guard, not Marcus, some younger man Alaric didn't recognize, stepped aside, and Seraphine Hale walked into his chambers like she owned them. She wasn't beautiful. Not in the way Isolde was beautiful, or Marjorie. She didn't have Vivian's exotic danger or Lyanna's fragile elegance or Alara's mysterious stillness. What she had was presence. Tall, maybe 5'10", with a frame that suggested she'd never missed a meal but had never wasted time on soft living either. Dark hair pulled back severely from a face that was all sharp angles and intelligent eyes, the kind of brown that looked black in certain light. She wore traveling clothes, leather and wool, practical shit that was dusty from the road. No jewelry, no perfume that Alaric could smell, no obvious weapons, though that meant nothing. She met his eyes without flinching, without the calculated submission every other woman in this palace had perfected, and Alaric felt something shift in his chest. Interest. Actual, genuine fucking interest, for the first time in months. "You're Seraphine Hale." "Yes." "Lord Castellan Hale's?" He let the question hang. "Daughter." She reached into her coat and produced a sealed letter, holding it out. He's dead. Poisoned 3 weeks ago. I've ridden hard to get here before his enemies could move against the succession. Alaric took the letter, broke the seal. Hale's handwriting, unmistakable. The words brief and brutal. Alaric. If you're reading this, I'm dead and my enemies are making their play. Trust no one in your court. They've already bought 3 of your mistresses. My daughter knows everything. Keep her alive and she'll help you clean house. Fail, and you'll be dead within the season. Castellan. The words hit like a fist to the gut. Alaric read it again, then a third time. His hand was steady, but his mind was racing, sorting through possibilities, threats, angles of attack. 3 of your mistresses. 3 out of 5. He looked up at Seraphine, who'd been watching him with the patience of a woman used to waiting for slow men to catch up. Which 3? I don't know yet. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. My father died before he could tell me names, but he had evidence, documents, correspondence with noble houses looking to control the throne through your bed. And you brought this evidence with you? Hidden. Safe. I'm not an idiot, Your Majesty. The slightest hint of scorn colored her tone. I came here alone because a caravan would have been attacked. I came to you first because everyone else in this palace is either compromised or soon will be. Alaric studied her, looking for the lie, the angle, the trap. But all he saw was exhaustion around her eyes and dirt under her fingernails and the rigid posture of someone who'd been in the saddle for 3 weeks straight, sleeping rough, trusting no one. Why should I believe you? Because in about 30 seconds, someone's going to knock on that door with wine you didn't order, and that wine is going to have enough poison in it to drop a warhorse. She checked the window, gauging the moon's position. My father's network sent word. The attempt was planned for tonight. They think you're alone and drunk and vulnerable. I am alone and drunk, but not vulnerable. Her eyes flicked to the guard by the door, then back to Alaric. Not if you're smart. As if on cue, a soft knock echoed through the chamber. The guard looked at Alaric. Alaric looked at Seraphine. She didn't move, didn't react, just stood there with her arms at her sides and her expression carefully blank. Your Majesty? A woman's voice. Sweet, familiar. I've brought you wine. The good vintage from your private cellar. I thought you might want company after such a trying evening. Elara fucking Venn, who never raised her voice, never made demands, never caused visible trouble. Alaric's blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. Guard, he said quietly, take the wine. Thank Mistress Venn for her thoughtfulness. Tell her I'm asleep and not to be disturbed. Your Majesty, do it, now. The guard opened the door just wide enough to accept a silver tray bearing a crystal decanter and a single glass. Elara's pale hand passed it through, her face just visible in the gap, smiling that soft, mysterious smile. For His Majesty's comfort, she murmured. The door closed. The guard set the tray on a side table, looking confused. Alaric walked to it slowly, studying the deep red liquid. It looked perfect. Smelled perfect. Probably tasted perfect, too, right up until your throat closed and your heart stopped. He picked up the glass, swirled the wine once, then walked to the balcony and hurled the entire fucking thing, glass, wine, and all, into the night. It shattered somewhere in the garden below, a faint crystalline crash. Get me Commander Thrace, he told the guard. Now, and send Marcus back to his post. I don't know you well enough to trust you. The guard's face went tight, but he nodded and left at a run. Silence filled the chamber. Alaric could hear his own heartbeat, steady and hard. Could hear Seraphine breathing, slow and controlled. 3 mistresses, he said without turning around. You really don't know which ones? I know one of them is Elara Venn. That was a test to see if you'd drink. My father suspected her for months. She paused. The other 2 are still hidden, but they'll reveal themselves soon. This failed attempt will force their hand. Because they'll think I'm on to them. Because they'll think I told you everything. She moved closer, and Alaric could smell horse and leather and woman sweat on her, honest smells that cut through the perfumed bullshit that usually surrounded him. They'll come after me first, try to discredit me, seduce me, bribe me, kill me. Whatever works. And you're okay with being bait? I'm okay with burning this entire fucking palace down if it means avenging my father. The calm cracked, just for a second, and Alaric saw rage underneath. Pure, cold, focused rage. So yes, your majesty, I'm okay with being bait. He turned to face her fully. Your father was a hard man, ruled the North with an iron fist and never asked for anything he hadn't earned. I respected the hell out of him. He respected you too, said you were the best warrior king the Empire had seen in 3 generations. Her jaw tightened. Said you were also letting yourself get destroyed from the inside by women who saw you as a prize to be won instead of a man to be served. Harsh. True. Alaric laughed, short and bitter. Yeah, true. He scrubbed a hand over his face, feeling stubble rasp against his palm. All right, you want to help me clean house? Fine, but we do it my way. Quietly, carefully. These women have allies, resources, escape routes. We move too fast and they'll scatter like roaches when you light a torch. I can be patient. Can you be convincing? Because starting tomorrow, you're going to be just another pretty face trying to climb into the king's bed. Another schemer. Another ambitious bitch looking for power. He watched her face for a reaction. Can you play that role? Seraphine's smile was cold and sharp. Your Majesty, I've been playing roles since I was old enough to understand that being a woman in this empire means being underestimated. I can play whatever part you need. Good. He moved to the wine cabinet, grabbed a clean bottle and 2 glasses this time, poured, handed her one. Then here's to burning down the rot. And to your father, who apparently saw this shitstorm coming long before I did. They drank. The wine was good, strong, nothing like the poisoned sweetness Alara had brought. You'll need a cover story, Alaric said, thinking it through. Why you're here, why I'm letting you stay. Already thought of that. I'm here seeking the king's protection after my father's death. The northern territories are in chaos, lordlings scrambling for position. I've come to the capital to petition for royal intervention, and failing that, to find a powerful husband who can help me reclaim what's mine. She shrugged. It's close enough to the truth that it'll hold up to scrutiny. And when the mistresses come sniffing around trying to figure out if you're a threat, I'll be scared, grateful, desperate. Everything they expect from a woman who's lost everything and needs a strong man to save her. The scorn was back in her voice. They'll eat it up. Women like that always do. They can't imagine someone playing a deeper game than they are. Smart, dangerous, angry. Alaric felt that pull again, stronger now. Not just interest. Something else. Something that had nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with the fact that she was standing in his chambers at midnight, drinking his wine, planning treason and counter-treason like they were discussing the weather. Careful, he told himself. That's how they get you. That's how you end up with 5 mistresses and a palace full of knives. But Seraphine Hale wasn't like the others. She wasn't here for power or position or a crown. She was here for revenge, which made her either the most dangerous person he'd ever let into his inner circle or the only one he could actually trust. Maybe both. You'll have chambers in the East Wing, he said, near enough to be under my protection, far enough to avoid looking like you're fucking me. Commander Thrace will assign you a guard, someone loyal, someone we can trust. Do you have people you can trust? Not many, but a few. Thrace is one. Marcus, the one-eyed bastard you saw outside. Maybe 2 or 3 others. He finished his wine, set the glass down harder than necessary. Everyone else is suspect until proven otherwise. Good. That's the right way to think in a nest of vipers. Footsteps in the corridor announced Commander Thrace's arrival. The man who entered was built like a brick shithouse, graying at the temples, with scars that told stories of 20 years in the field. He took one look at Seraphine, then at Alaric, and his expression didn't change one fucking bit. Your Majesty called? Thrace, meet Seraphine Hale, Lord Castellan's daughter. She's going to be staying in the palace for a while and she needs protection, the kind that doesn't ask questions and doesn't take bribes. Thrace's eyes narrowed slightly. That kind of protection is expensive. I'll pay whatever it costs, assign someone good, someone who'd rather die than betray a trust. I've got a man, Sarah, young but solid, lost his family to the northern raids, owes the Hales a blood debt. Thrace looked at Seraphine. You the one who rode 3 weeks straight to get here? Yes. Your father taught you to ride like that? Among other things. Thrace grunted, something like approval in the sound. He was a good man. Hard, but good. I'll put Sarah outside your door starting tonight. East wing, 3rd floor, corner room with the good view. That work for you, Your Majesty? Perfect. Anything else? Alaric hesitated, then pointed at the silver tray. Have that wine tested, discreetly. I want to know what's in it and where it came from. And I want to know which of the kitchen staff prepared it. Thrace looked at the tray, at the empty space where the glass had been, and his jaw tightened. Understood. I'll handle it personally. One more thing. Starting tomorrow, I want eyes on all 5 mistresses. Where they go, who they talk to, what they're doing, but carefully, they can't know they're being watched. That's going to take manpower. Then find the manpower. This is priority 1, Thrace.
The commander nodded once, sharp and military. Yes, Your Majesty. He turned to Seraphine. Lady Hale, if you'll follow me, I'll get you settled. Seraphine set her glass down, gave Alaric a look that might have been respect or might have been calculation, hard to tell, and followed Thrace to the door. She paused at the threshold, glanced back. Your Majesty? Yeah? Don't trust anyone, not even me. Not until I've proven myself.
Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click that sounded unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Alaric stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing, his mind racing through scenarios and contingencies and all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. 3 mistresses bought and paid for. 3 traitors in his own bed, plotting God's knew what with God's knew who. And now a woman he'd known for all of 30 minutes was his best chance at rooting them out before they put a knife in his ribs or poison in his wine or a crown on some puppet king's head. He laughed, short and bitter, and reached for the bottle again. Fuck me, he muttered to the empty room. This is going to get bloody. Outside, the night deepened. Clouds rolled in from the sea, blotting out the stars one by one. Somewhere in the palace, 5 women slept or plotted or fucked or schemed, each one convinced she was playing the smartest game. None of them knew the board had just changed. None of them knew the king had finally woken up. And none of them knew that Seraphine Hale had just declared war on every single one of them. Morning came too early and too bright, stabbing through the balcony doors like an accusation. Alaric woke with a headache, a dry mouth, and the certain knowledge that today was going to be a special kind of hell. The kind where you smiled and nodded while waiting for someone to try and kill you. He dragged himself through the morning routine, wash, shave, dress in something that screamed king without actually being useful in a fight. The servants who attended him were quiet, efficient, their faces carefully blank. He didn't know any of their names, didn't know if they were loyal or bought or just too scared to care. That needed to change. He studied them as they worked. A young woman, maybe 20, with nervous hands and downcast eyes. An older man, graying, with the kind of face that had seen too much and learned to show nothing. A boy, barely 16, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been doing this job since childhood. "What's your name?" Alaric asked the woman. She nearly dropped the brush she was holding. Me, Your Majesty." "You see anyone else I'm talking to?" "Sarah. Sarah Lynn, Your Majesty." Her voice shook. "How long have you worked in the palace, Sarah?" 3 years, Your Majesty." "You like it here?" She blinked, clearly confused by the question. Yes, Your Majesty. It's an honor to serve." "That's not what I asked. Do you like it here? The work, the people, the way things are run?" Sarah's eyes darted to the older man, who gave the slightest shake of his head. But Alaric saw it, and something cold settled in his gut. "It's fine, Your Majesty," she said, her voice even quieter now. "Uh-huh." He turned to the older man. "And you? What's your name?" "Garrett, Your Majesty." "How long, Garrett?" 20 years. 20 years, that's a long time. You must have seen a lot of changes, a lot of developments." He let the word hang there, watching Garrett's face. "Anyone ever ask you to do things that seemed off, strange, things that maybe didn't sit right?" Garrett's expression didn't flicker. "I serve the crown, Your Majesty. That's all." "That's all," Alaric repeated. He looked at the boy. "You?" "Thomas, Your Majesty. 2 years." "Anyone ever threaten you, Thomas? Anyone ever tell you to keep your mouth shut about things you saw or heard?" The boy's face went white. Bingo. No, Your Majesty. I don't." "It's all right, kid. You're not in trouble. But I need you to understand something, all 3 of you." Alaric stood, and the room seemed to shrink around him.
Things are changing. The way this palace has been run, the way people have been treating each other, the way fear has been used as a weapon, all of that is done. Starting now. If anyone threatens you, bribes you, tries to make you do something that feels wrong, you come directly to me or to Commander Thrace. You'll be protected, you'll be rewarded, and whoever tried to use you will be punished. Clear?
3 pairs of wide eyes, 3 slow nods. Good. Now finish up. I've got a breakfast to suffer through.
They scattered like mice, and Alaric was alone again, staring at his reflection in the polished mirror. 38 years old, hard face, harder eyes, the kind of man who'd killed his first enemy at 16 and his 100th before he was 25.
But ruling an empire wasn't about killing. It was about knowing when to kill and who to trust and how to tell the difference between loyalty and performance. He'd been failing at that for too long. Time to fix it. Breakfast was in the small dining hall, the one reserved for informal royal meals, which meant only 20 people instead of 200. The mistresses were already there when he arrived, arranged around the table like chess pieces. Isolde at the head, naturally, because she'd been first and still thought that meant something. Liana to her right, pale and tight-lipped from last night's humiliation. Vivian across from her, looking like she'd either just fucked someone or killed them. Maybe both. Marjorie near the windows, golden and glowing and radiating false cheer. And Alara at the far end, quiet and still, her eyes on her plate. The woman who'd brought him poison 12 hours ago was eating buttered toast like she didn't have a care in the world. Alaric's hands clenched under the table, but his face stayed calm, interested, mildly amused. "Good morning, ladies," a chorus of "Your Majesty" in 5 different tones, ranging from adoring to resentful. He sat, and servants immediately swarmed with food he didn't want and wine he wouldn't drink. Coffee, though. Coffee he could do. Strong and black and bitter enough to strip paint. "Sleep well?" he asked Alara directly, watching her face. She looked up, her dark eyes calm and untroubled. "Very well, thank you, Your Majesty. The palace is so peaceful at night, so quiet. One can almost forget about all the complications of the day. Complications. That's one word for it." He sipped his coffee, burning his tongue. Didn't care. "Speaking of which, anything interesting happened last night after I retired?" "Nothing of note," Isolde said smoothly. "Though I did hear we have a guest. Some northern girl seeking protection?" "Not some northern girl. Lord Castellan Hale's daughter, and yes, she's seeking protection. Her father was murdered, poisoned at his own table." The word poisoned landed like a stone in water. Ripples of tension spread across the table. "How terrible," Liana murmured. "How convenient," Vivian added, her eyes sharp as glass, "that she arrives just when the northern succession is in question." "Convenient for who?" Alaric asked mildly. "For anyone looking to influence the outcome. The northern territories are rich in resources, iron, timber, farmland. Whoever controls them controls a significant portion of the empire's economy." Vivian leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming on the table. "A desperate woman with a claim to those resources could be useful to the right person." "Or dangerous to the wrong person," Marjorie said, her blue eyes wide and innocent. "If she's really here seeking a husband, she'll be competition for anyone else trying to secure a powerful match." "Competition," Isolde repeated, her smile sharp. "From a frightened girl who rode 3 weeks alone because she was too scared to trust her own people. I doubt she's much competition for anyone." "Don't underestimate fear," Alara said softly. "Desperate people do desperate things. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who have nothing left to lose." The table fell silent, everyone staring at Alara. Alara staring at her toast. Alaric felt ice slide down his spine. Was that a warning, a threat, or just Alara being her usual cryptic self? "Well," he said, breaking the tension, "you'll all get to judge for yourselves tonight. I've invited Lady Hale to join us for dinner. Thought it would be nice to welcome her properly." "How thoughtful of you, my love," Isolde purred. "Though I do hope she understands the dynamics of this court. It can be overwhelming for newcomers. So many rules, so many ways to make mistakes." "I'm sure she'll figure it out," Alaric said. "She seems smart, observant, the kind of woman who knows how to navigate dangerous situations." Then she'll fit right in, Vivian said, and everyone laughed, brittle and false. The rest of breakfast passed in careful conversation and veiled threats disguised as concern. Alaric ate without tasting, watching reactions, cataloging every glance and gesture and carefully chosen word. By the time the plates were cleared, he had a working theory about which mistresses were the most threatened by Seraphine's arrival. Isolde was worried about losing her position as first mistress. She'd built her entire identity around being the woman who'd been there longest, known him best. A new woman with a legitimate claim to his protection threatened that. Vivian saw Seraphine as a political opportunity or a political threat, depending on which way the wind blew. She'd be calculating angles, trying to figure out how to use or eliminate this new player. Marjorie was just reactive, young and impulsive and prone to seeing every other woman as competition for Alaric's attention. Liana seemed genuinely uncertain, which made her either the cleanest of the bunch or the best actress. And Alara was impossible to read, but that comment about desperate people doing desperate things, that had been pointed, deliberate. A warning that she knew Seraphine was more than she appeared, or a threat to Seraphine directly. Either way, it confirmed what Alaric already knew. Alara Venn was one of the traitors, and she was smart enough to be very, very dangerous. "Ladies," Alaric said, standing, "I have work to do. Enjoy your day. Try not to kill each other before dinner." He left before they could respond, walking the corridors with purpose, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Commander Thrace was waiting in the hallway outside the royal offices, his face grim. "Tested the wine," he said without preamble. "Widow's kiss, enough to kill 3 men. It came from your private cellar, prepared by a kitchen maid named Bess. She swears Mistress Venn personally requested it for your comfort and gave her 10 gold crowns for her trouble." 10 crowns, that's 6 months' wages for a kitchen maid, Thrace finished. "The girl's terrified. Thinks she's going to hang. I told her to keep quiet and stay away from the mistresses." "Good. What about the other mistresses? Any movement overnight?" Thrace pulled out his notebook. Isolde received a visitor around midnight. Male, mid-40s, well-dressed. They met in her chambers for approximately 40 minutes. He left through the servants' entrance. Description: tall, dark hair, expensive clothes but no house colors. My man said he moved like military, good posture, aware of his surroundings. Could be anyone. Noble, merchant, agent. Alaric rubbed his temples. What else? Vivian sent a bird this morning. Destination unknown, but she used the royal rookery and bribed the keeper to not log it. She's getting sloppy. Or bold. People get bold when they think they're winning. Thrace flipped a page. Marjorie met with a woman in the gardens. Couldn't get close enough to hear the conversation, but they argued. The woman left in tears. The woman? Not Marjorie? No, Marjorie looked satisfied, pleased with herself. Fuck. Alaric processed that. Probably a rival she just crushed, or someone she used and discarded. What about Liana? Nothing. She spent the night alone, crying. Sent her maid away. Didn't eat dinner, didn't leave her chambers until breakfast. She's either clean or playing a very long game. Alaric moved to the window, looked out over the training yard where young soldiers were running drills. What about Seraphine? She settled in all right. Better than all right. Sarah says she slept maybe 3 hours. Spent the rest of the time organizing her father's documents. This morning she asked for paper and ink. Been writing letters. To who? Don't know. She sealed them before Sarah could see. But she asked him about the royal courier system, how to send messages securely. Alaric nodded slowly. She's reaching out to her father's network, getting pieces in place. He turned back to Thrace. I want to know everything about Alara Venn, and I mean everything. Where she came from, who vouched for her, what her background was before she showed up at court 5 years ago. Dig deep. Go back 10 years if you have to. You think she's not who she says she is? I think she's exactly who she says she is. A beautiful mystery with no past and perfect timing, which makes her either incredibly lucky or incredibly manufactured. He paused. My money's on manufactured. I'll put my best people on it. Do it quietly. If she catches wind that we're investigating her, she'll rabbit or escalate. I know. Thrace closed his notebook. Anything else? Yeah, find out who visited Isolde last night. I want a name, a house affiliation, and a full background check. Someone bold enough to visit the king's mistress in her chambers at midnight is either stupid or connected enough not to care about being seen. On it. Thrace moved toward the door, then paused. Your Majesty? This Seraphine girl, you trust her? About as far as I can throw you. But you're letting her into the inner circle anyway. Because right now, she's the only one whose motives I actually understand. Alaric met Thrace's eyes. She wants revenge for her father. That's clean, simple. I can work with that. Everyone else wants power or position or money or my fucking throne. Those motivations are complicated, messy, dangerous. Revenge can be dangerous too. Only if it's not pointed in the right direction. He smiled, cold and sharp. Lucky for me, Seraphine's revenge and my survival happened to align perfectly. Thrace grunted. Let's hope it stays that way. He left, and Alaric was alone with papers and problems and the growing weight of decisions that needed to be made. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and reports and the endless bureaucratic grind that came with ruling an empire. Border disputes, trade negotiations, infrastructure projects. 100 small fires that needed to be put out before they became big fires. Through it all, Alaric's mind kept circling back to the same questions. Which two mistresses were working with Alara? Who was pulling their strings? And how much time did he have before they made their move? By the time evening rolled around, he was exhausted, angry, and ready for the performance that was about to begin. Dinner. With 5 vipers and 1 woman who might be his salvation or his doom. Should be fun. The grand dining hall was lit with 1,000 candles, their flames reflecting off polished marble and gilded fixtures until the whole room seemed to glow. A waste of money and resources, but appearances mattered, especially when you were about to introduce a new player into a game where the stakes were life and death. Alaric arrived first, taking his seat at the head of the impossibly long table. The mistresses filtered in over the next 10 minutes, each making her entrance like she was walking onto a stage. Isolde in emerald silk that clung to every curve. Vivian in crimson that matched her lips and made her skin look like polished mahogany. Liana in pale blue that made her look even more fragile than usual. Marjorie in gold that caught the candlelight and turned her into a living flame. And Alara in black. Simple, elegant, deadly. They took their seats without being told, positions they'd claimed through months of careful maneuvering and vicious infighting. Isolde closest to Alaric on the right, Vivian across from her, the others filling in the spaces between. And then Seraphine entered. She wore deep blue, almost navy, with silver thread that caught the light when she moved. Her hair was still pulled back but softened around her face. She'd done something to her eyes, makeup probably, that made them look even darker, more intense. She looked like a woman in mourning who'd decided to stop mourning and start fighting. Every eye in the room tracked her as she walked to her seat, strategically placed between Marjorie and Vivian, close enough to Alaric to suggest favor, but not so close as to provoke immediate war. "Lady Hale," Alaric said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Welcome." "Your Majesty." She inclined her head, graceful and controlled. "Thank you for your hospitality. It's more than I dared hope for. Your father was a friend to the crown. The least I can do is offer his daughter protection in her time of need." He raised his glass. "To Lord Castellan Hale. May he find peace in whatever lies beyond." Everyone drank, even Alara. Servants brought the first course, some kind of soup that smelled like herbs and cream and money. Alaric didn't touch his, just watched as Seraphine picked up her spoon, tasted, and nodded approval. "This is wonderful," she said to no one in particular. "I haven't had a proper meal in weeks. Road food is adequate, but hardly pleasant." "You rode alone for 3 weeks?" Marjorie asked, her blue eyes wide with what might have been genuine shock. "That's incredibly dangerous. Weren't you frightened?" "Terrified," Seraphine admitted. "But staying in the north was more dangerous than leaving. After my father died, the vultures started circling immediately. Distant cousins. Ambitious lords. Men who saw his death as an opportunity to seize control." She set her spoon down carefully. "I had to choose between staying and fighting a war I couldn't win, or coming here and begging for help. I chose survival." "Smart girl," Vivian said, but her tone suggested anything but approval. "Though I have to wonder, what makes you think the king can help?"
The northern succession is complicated. Interfering could start a war.
I'm not asking His Majesty to interfere, Seraphine said carefully. I'm asking for his advice, his protection while I figure out my next move, and perhaps— She glanced at Alaric, then away. A perfect moment of calculated vulnerability. Perhaps help finding a husband strong enough to reclaim what's mine. Silence. Then Isolde laughed, high and bright and cruel. Oh, you are ambitious, aren't you? Come to the capital, charm the king, find a powerful husband, reclaim your inheritance. It's quite the plan. It's the only plan I have, Seraphine said quietly. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a political mastermind. I'm just a woman who watched her father die and ran before the same thing could happen to her. And here you are, Alara said softly from the far end of the table, in the safest place in the empire, surrounded by people who understand survival, who've built their lives on knowing when to fight and when to run. Every woman at that table heard the subtext. We know you're running. The question is, what are you running from and what are you running toward? Seraphine met Alara's eyes directly. Then perhaps you could teach me. I'd very much like to learn how to do more than just survive. I'd like to learn how to win. The tension ratcheted up another notch. Alaric could feel it, thick and dangerous, pressing down on the room like a physical weight. Winning, Vivian repeated, swirling her wine, is an interesting goal, but winning requires knowing the rules of the game, knowing who the players are, knowing which battles to fight and which to avoid. She leaned forward slightly. Do you know the rules, Lady Hale? I'm learning them, Seraphine said. Quickly. Not quickly enough, I suspect, Marjorie said, and there was pity in her voice. Real or fake, hard to tell. The court is complicated, dangerous for those who don't understand how things work. Then it's fortunate I have such experienced teachers, Seraphine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The next hour passed in a dance of words and implications. The mistresses probed, testing Seraphine's defenses, looking for weaknesses. Seraphine parried, giving just enough to seem real while holding back enough to stay mysterious. Alaric watched it all, fascinated despite himself. She was good, better than good. She played the role of frightened, desperate noblewoman perfectly, while never quite letting them see what was underneath. And underneath, if Alaric was reading her right, was cold fucking steel. Tell me, Isolde said during the main course, some kind of roasted bird that probably had a fancy name. What was your father like? I heard he was formidable. He was hard, Seraphine said simply. Fair, but hard. He believed in strength, in doing what was necessary, regardless of the cost. Her voice tightened slightly. He taught me that sentiment is a luxury, that in the north you survive by being tougher than the winter and colder than the wind. And are you? Liana asked quietly. Tough and cold? I'm alive, Seraphine said. That should answer your question. Liana looked away first. By the time dessert arrived, some elaborate thing involving chocolate and gold leaf, Alaric had seen enough. The mistresses were circling, testing, but they hadn't committed to anything yet, still trying to figure out if Seraphine was a threat or an opportunity, which meant the real moves would come later, in private, when they thought no one was watching. Ladies, he said, standing. Everyone else immediately rose as well. Thank you for a lovely evening. Lady Hale, I hope you found our company enlightening. Very much so, Your Majesty. Seraphine's smile was polite, grateful, perfect. Thank you for including me. Of course. Commander Thrace will escort you back to your chambers. Ladies, I bid you all good night. He left before anyone could respond, walking quickly through the corridors, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Behind him, he could hear the mistresses breaking into immediate, urgent conversation. Low voices, sharp tones, the sound of knives being sharpened. Let them talk. Let them plan. Let them think they still had the advantage. Because tonight, after everyone else was asleep, he was going to review Seraphine's evidence, and then he'd know exactly which snakes to kill first. The halls were quiet as he made his way back to his chambers. Guards at their posts, servants finishing their evening duties, the palace settling into its nighttime rhythms like a living thing exhaling. Marcus was at his door, one-eyed and reliable. Quiet night, Your Majesty? Not even close, Alaric muttered, but it's about to get quieter. No visitors. I don't care who it is or what they want. No one gets through that door unless they're bleeding or the palace is on fire. Understood. Inside, Alaric stripped off the formal coat and poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, drank it standing, poured another. A knock came at exactly midnight. "Commander Thrace and Lady Hale, Your Majesty," Marcus called through the door. "Let them in." They entered quietly, Thrace carrying a leather satchel that looked like it weighed about 20 pounds. Seraphine looked tired. The careful mask she'd worn at dinner finally dropped. "That was exhausting," she said without preamble. "How do you stand it? The constant performance, the endless games." "Practice," Alaric said, "and a lot of drinking." "How'd they react after I left?" "Exactly how you'd expect. Isolde tried to befriend me. Vivian tried to intimidate me. Marjorie tried to figure out if I was after you or after money. Liana offered sympathy. And Alara," Seraphine paused. "Alara watched me like a snake watching a mouse. Didn't say a word, just watched." "She's the dangerous one," Thrace said, setting the satchel on the table. "The quiet ones always are." "Let's see what we've got," Alaric said, moving to the table. "Show me everything." What followed was 3 hours of intense analysis. Seraphine spread out her father's documents, letters, financial records, coded messages that they had to puzzle through together. Thrace took notes, cross-referencing names and dates with his own intelligence. And gradually, a picture emerged. 3 mistresses, Isolde Crane, Vivian Locke, and Alara Venn, had been receiving payments for years. Small amounts at first, routed through shell companies and intermediaries, but the pattern was unmistakable. The money came from various sources, but when Thrace traced them back far enough, they all led to the same place. Accounts controlled by Lord Weston Greer, Duke of the Western Provinces, one of the wealthiest men in the Empire, and a man who'd opposed Alaric's coronation 8 years ago. "He's been planning this for years," Alaric said quietly, staring at the web of connections they'd mapped out.
Placing women in my bed, earning my trust, waiting for the right moment to strike. The question is, what's the end game? Thrace tapped a particular document. These payments stopped 3 months ago. All of them. Why?
"Because whatever they've been building toward is about to happen," Seraphine said. "You don't stop paying your agents unless the mission is complete or about to be completed. Or unless you've decided they're expendable," Alaric added darkly. "Either way, it means we're running out of time." Thrace looked up from his notes. "If they're moving soon, we need to move faster." "Agreed, but carefully. We expose them without proof. They'll claim persecution. Greer will rally half the nobility to his defense, and we'll have a civil war on our hands. Then we get the proof," Seraphine said. "We force them to incriminate themselves." "How?" She met Alaric's eyes, and her smile was sharp and cold and absolutely merciless. "By making them think I'm on their side. By offering to help them kill you." The room went very quiet. "That's insane," Thrace said finally. "That's the only way this works," Seraphine shot back. "You said it yourself. We need them to reveal themselves. So let's give them a reason to trust me. Let's make me the newest member of their conspiracy. And if they figure out you're playing them, then I'll be dead. But you'll know who the traitors are, and you can act accordingly." She shrugged, like she was discussing the weather instead of her own potential murder. "It's a risk, but it's a calculated one." Alaric studied her. This woman who'd ridden 3 weeks alone through hostile territory, who'd walked into his palace knowing she was surrounded by enemies, who was now calmly proposing to infiltrate a conspiracy that had been years in the making. She was either the bravest person he'd ever met or the craziest. Probably both. "All right," he said finally, "we do it your way, but carefully. Thrace, I want eyes on Seraphine at all times. If anything goes wrong, if she's in danger, you pull her out immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Seraphine, you sure about this?" "No," she admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway. My father didn't raise a coward." "No," Alaric agreed. "He raised a woman who's going to get herself killed trying to avenge him. Better than dying quietly in the north while his enemies take everything he built." She started gathering the documents, carefully organizing them back into the satchel. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. You'll approach one of them, your choice which one, and plant the seed. Make it subtle, casual. Just a hint that maybe you're not as helpless as you seem." "Isolde," Seraphine said immediately. "She's the most ambitious, the most desperate to maintain her position. If anyone would be willing to bring in a new ally, it's her." Agreed. But watch yourself. Isolde's been at this game longer than you've been alive. She'll smell a trap if you're not careful. Then I'll be very, very careful. Thrace stood, stretching muscles that had been tense for hours. I'll walk Lady Hale back to her chambers. Your Majesty, get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Every day's a long day when you're ruling an empire built on lies and held together by violence, Alaric muttered. But he nodded. Go. Both of you. And Seraphine? She paused at the door. Thank you for this. For risking your life to help me clean out the rot. Don't thank me yet, she said. Thank me when we're standing over their bodies and your throne is secure. Then she was gone, and Alaric was alone with his whiskey and his thoughts and the growing certainty that before this was over, the palace was going to run red with blood. He just hoped it wouldn't be Seraphine's, or his own. Tit. The night deepened. Clouds rolled in from the sea, heavy and dark, blocking out the moon. Somewhere in the palace, 5 women slept or schemed or fucked or plotted, each one convinced she was playing the smartest game. None of them knew the board had just changed. None of them knew the king had finally woken up. And none of them knew that Seraphine Hale had just declared war on every single one of them. In his chambers, Alaric stood on the balcony, watching the storm clouds gather. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Lightning flickered on the horizon. The storm was coming, and when it broke, everyone was going to drown. The trap is set. The pieces are in motion. Tomorrow Seraphine makes her move, and the mistresses will finally show their true faces. But in a palace where everyone lies and no one can be trusted, who will strike first? And who will survive the night when the knives come out? The morning came with rain, not the gentle kind that whispered against windows and made everything smell clean. This was the violent, angry rain that came off the sea like fists, hammering the palace stones and turning the courtyards into rivers of mud and regret. Alaric stood at his window watching the storm tear through the capital below and thought about blood. How it looked on marble, how it smelled when it was fresh, how it felt when you'd spilled enough of it that your hands never quite felt clean again. Today, someone was going to bleed. Question was, who would draw first? A knock interrupted his thoughts. Thrace entered without waiting for permission, his face grim in the gray morning light. She's moving. Already? Went to Isolde's chambers an hour ago, claimed she couldn't sleep. Wanted company. Female company. Someone who understood what it was like to be alone in a strange place. Thrace crossed to the window, stood beside Alaric, both of them staring out at the rain. Isolde invited her in. They've been talking for 40 minutes. Your man close enough to hear? Close enough to see, not close enough to listen. But the body language. Thrace paused. Isolde is interested, leaning in, touching Seraphine's arm. All the signs of someone trying to establish intimacy, build trust. Good, that's good. Alaric turned from the window, moved to the table where breakfast sat untouched, poured coffee, drank it black and scalding. What about the others? About Vivian sent another bird this morning. Same unknown destination. Marjorie met with that woman again, the one from yesterday. This time there was no argument. Money changed hands, and Alara, Thrace's jaw tightened. Alara spent 2 hours in the palace library reading old records, birth registries, noble lineages, like she was researching something. Or someone. Alaric set the cup down. Seraphine, probably. Checking her story. Looking for holes. That would be my guess. Alara's careful. She won't accept Seraphine at face value, no matter how convincing the performance. Then we need to make sure the performance is fucking flawless. Alaric grabbed his coat, practical leather today, not the velvet bullshit, and headed for the door. I'm going to the training yard. Need to hit something before I lose my mind. You keep eyes on Seraphine. Anything goes wrong, anything at all, you get her out. And if she doesn't want to come, drag her. I don't care if she screams treason. Better alive and angry than dead and right. Thrace nodded once, sharp and military, and left. Alaric stood alone in his chambers, listening to the rain hammer the stones, and wondered when exactly his life had turned into a stage play written by someone with a grudge against happiness. The training yard was half flooded, mud sucking at boots and making every movement twice as hard. Perfect. Alaric grabbed a practice sword from the rack and went at the training dummy like it had personally insulted his mother. Wood splintered. Straw exploded. His shoulders burned and his hands ached and for 5 blessed minutes he didn't have to think about mistresses or conspiracies or women who were either going to save him or get themselves killed trying. Your form's shit. He spun, sword up, and found Commander Kale watching from the covered walkway. The weapons master was older than dirt, scarred like a battlefield, and had never once in 20 years given Alaric a compliment that wasn't wrapped in an insult. Fuck off, Kale. Nah. You're dropping your shoulder on the backswing, leaves your ribs exposed. Any half-decent fighter would gut you like a fish. Kale stepped into the rain, apparently not giving a shit that he was about to get soaked. Again, and this time, keep your God's damned elbow up. They went at it for an hour. Alaric attacking, Kyle correcting, the rain turning them both into drowned rats who were too stubborn to quit. By the time Alaric finally called it, his muscles were screaming and his mind was blessedly temporarily empty. Better, Kyle grunted. Still shit, but better shit. High praise. You're distracted. Been distracted for months. A distracted king is a dead king. Kyle wiped rain from his face with the back of one scarred hand. Whatever's eating at you, deal with it, or it'll deal with you. Working on it. Work faster. Kale headed back toward the armory, then paused. Heard you got a new woman in the palace. Northern girl. Hale's daughter. News travels fast. News always travels fast when it involves a pretty face and a dead lord. Kale's eyes were sharp despite the age lines around them. She trouble? Probably. Good. You've been too comfortable. Comfort makes men soft. He spat into the mud. Keep your edge, Your Majesty. You're going to need it. Then he was gone, and Alaric was alone in the rain with a practiced sword and the growing certainty that everyone around him could smell the storm coming. By the time he made it back to his chambers, changed into dry clothes, and dealt with the morning's pile of administrative horseshit, it was nearly noon. The rain had slowed to a sullen drizzle. The palace was waking up, servants moving through corridors, nobles gathering for lunch, the whole machine grinding forward like nothing was wrong. Like 3 women weren't plotting to put him in the ground. Like 1 woman wasn't risking her life to expose them. Thrace appeared in the doorway, silent as smoke. She's out. Meeting went well, apparently. Isolde invited her to tea this afternoon. Private. Just the 2 of them. That was fast? Seraphine's good. Played it perfectly. Scared, grateful, desperate for allies. Isolde ate it up. Sees her as a potential asset or a pawn. Not sure which yet, but either way she wants Seraphine close. And Seraphine, waiting in her chambers, said she needs to prepare. Wants to look the part. Thrace moved into the room, closed the door. Your Majesty, I have to say, this plan makes me nervous. We're betting everything on a woman we barely know, sending her into the lion's den with nothing but her wits and a cover story. You got a better idea? No, which is why it makes me nervous. Thrace ran a hand through his graying hair. These women have been playing this game for years. Seraphine's smart, but smart isn't always enough. It'll have to be. Alaric moved to the window, stared out at the dripping city. Because we're out of time and out of options. Either Seraphine gets them to reveal themselves, or we go to war blind. And if they kill her, then we burn the palace down and sort through the ashes. His voice was flat, cold, final. One way or another, this ends soon. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. There's something else, Thrace said finally. About Alara. I had my people dig into her background like you asked. And it's too clean, perfect pedigree, perfect references. Perfect story about a minor noble house from the eastern provinces that just happens to have burned down in a fire 6 years ago, conveniently destroying all the records. Thrace pulled out his notebook. I sent word to the eastern provinces, asked around. No one remembers a House Ven. No one remembers an Alara. It's like she appeared fully formed 5 years ago with a story and a face and nothing else. A plant? Almost certainly. The question is, who planted her and how deep does it go? Alaric felt ice slide through his veins. If Greer went to the trouble of creating an entire false identity, giving her years to establish herself, that means she's not just a spy. She's something else, something more important. Like what? Like insurance. Like a weapon he's been holding in reserve. Alaric turned from the window. Isolde and Vivian are probably just bought, paid agents doing what they're told, but Alara? Alara's a true believer, someone who's been groomed for this from the beginning, which makes her the most dangerous. and the most vulnerable. True believers always think they're invincible right up until the moment they're not. He grabbed his coat again. Where is she now? Still in the library. Been there all morning. Good. Let her research. Let her think she's being clever. Alaric headed for the door. I'm going to lunch. Make an appearance. Look calm and kingly and completely unaware that my house is full of traitors. You're getting good at lying. I've had a lot of practice. Lunch was served in the sunroom, all glass and light and greenery that was supposed to make you forget you were in a palace built on conquest and maintained through violence. Didn't work, but someone had tried. The mistresses were already seated when Alaric arrived, all 5 of them, arranged around the table like they'd choreographed it. Probably had. Ladies, a chorus of greetings, bright and false. He sat. Servants materialized with food and wine. The usual dance began. Sleep well, my love? Isolde asked, her green eyes warm and predatory. Well enough. You? Wonderfully, though I did have a visitor this morning, your little northern girl. She smiled, showing teeth. Such a sweet thing, so lost and frightened, I felt compelled to offer guidance. That was kind of you. Alaric kept his voice neutral, interested but not too interested. How'd she seem? Desperate, lonely, looking for friends in a place where everyone's a stranger. Isolde picked at her salad, delicate and deadly. I've invited her to tea this afternoon. Thought it might help her feel more welcome. I'm sure she appreciates that. He glanced around the table. All of you making her feel welcome, I hope. She's under my protection. That means she's under yours as well. Nods all around, smiles that didn't reach eyes. Of course, Vivian said smoothly, though one does wonder how long she plans to stay. Surely she has responsibilities in the north, a father's estate to settle, enemies to confront. She's waiting for my counsel on the succession issue. Once that's resolved, she'll likely return. Alaric sipped his wine, watching reactions. Unless she finds a husband here, then all bets are off. A husband? Marjorie's voice was light, but her eyes were calculating. Does she have prospects? Anyone she's mentioned? Not to me, but then we've barely spoken. Perhaps one of you could help her. Introduce her to suitable matches, men with resources and ambition. Oh, I'm sure we could find someone suitable, Isolde purred. There are so many ambitious men at court. So many who'd love to get their hands on northern territory through a marriage alliance. The subtext was clear, and so many who'd be willing to pay for an introduction. Alaric filed that away for later. Just make sure whoever you introduce is legitimate. I won't have her taken advantage of. She's been through enough. Of course not, Liana said quietly. She'd been silent until now, pale and withdrawn. We'll take good care of her. Something in her tone made Alaric look closer. Liana's hands were shaking slightly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying again, and there was a bruise on her wrist, just visible below her sleeve. Liana, you all right? She startled, pulled her sleeve down. Fine, Your Majesty, just tired. I haven't been sleeping well. You should see the physician. Get something to help you sleep. I will. Thank you. But her voice said she wouldn't, and her eyes said she was lying about being fine. Alaric made a mental note to have Thrace check on her. Something was wrong there, something beyond the usual palace drama. Alara, silent as always, watched the exchange with dark, unreadable eyes. The rest of lunch passed in small talk and careful maneuvering. By the time dessert arrived, Alaric was ready to stab someone with a dessert fork just to make things interesting. Ladies, he said, standing, always a pleasure. I have meetings this afternoon, so I'll leave you to your own devices. Try not to cause too much chaos. We'll be on our best behavior, Isolde promised, her smile sharp as glass. He left before he could say something stupid, walking the corridors with purpose, nodding to guards and servants, playing the role of king who had everything under control. Inside, he was counting down the hours until tea time, until Seraphine walked into Isolde's chambers and either earned their trust or signed her own death warrant. The afternoon dragged. Alaric sat through 2 council meetings, signed off on 3 trade agreements, and reviewed reports from the border provinces. All of it important, none of it holding his attention. His mind kept circling back to the same image. Seraphine sitting across from Isolde, tea growing cold between them, every word a potential trap. By the time the meetings ended and the afternoon sun was slanting through the western windows, his nerves were stretched tight enough to snap. Thrace found him in his study, staring at papers he wasn't reading. She went in 20 minutes ago. And nothing yet. My man's outside the door. If anything goes wrong, he'll intervene. What could go wrong? Alaric heard the edge in his own voice, didn't care. Just two women having tea, talking about hair and dresses and who's fucking who. Perfectly safe. Your Majesty, I know it's dangerous. I know she's walking a razor's edge. I know all of it. He threw down the pen he'd been holding. But we're out of options, Thrace. This is the play. Either it works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then we improvise, like we always do. He stood, started pacing. How long has she been in there? 20 minutes. That's not long enough to say, it's barely started, Your Majesty. Give it time. Time is what we don't have. But he stopped pacing, forced himself to breathe. Fine. We wait. But I want updates every 15 minutes. I want to know the second something changes. Yes, Your Majesty. Thrace left. Alaric was alone with his thoughts, and his fear, and the slow, agonizing crawl of the clock. 15 minutes passed, then 30, then 45. Each update was the same, still talking. No signs of distress, no raised voices. Just two women having tea. It was driving him insane. By the time the hour mark hit, Alaric was ready to storm Isolde's chambers himself. Damn the consequences. Then Thrace appeared in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. She's out, heading back to her chambers now. Looks pleased with herself. Pleased how? Like someone who just won a hand of cards she wasn't sure she could win. Thrace stepped into the study. Isolde saw her out personally, invited her to dinner tomorrow night, private dinner, just the two of them, said they had so much to talk about. That's good. That's good, right? I think so, but we won't know for sure until we talk to Seraphine, see what actually happened in there. Then let's go talk to her. Your Majesty, that might look suspicious. You rushing to her chambers right after she meets with Isolde. I don't give a shit how it looks. I need to know what happened. He was already moving toward the door. Come on. They walked quickly through the corridors, Alaric forcing himself to maintain a pace that didn't scream desperate and terrified. Guards nodded as they passed. Servants pressed themselves against walls. Seraphine's chambers were in the east wing, third floor, corner room. With the good view just like Thrace had promised, Sarah stood outside, young and scarred and alert. She inside? Yes, Your Majesty, arrived 5 minutes ago. Anyone else visit? No, Your Majesty. She came straight from Mistress Crane's chambers. Good. We're going in. You stay out here. No one enters. Not servants, not mistresses, not anyone. Clear? Crystal, Your Majesty. Alaric knocked once, then entered without waiting for permission. Seraphine stood by the window, backlit by the afternoon sun, and for a moment she looked like something carved from light and shadow. Then she turned, and Alaric saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly before she clasped them together. Your Majesty, Commander. How'd it go? Alaric asked without preamble. Good, I think. She bought it. The scared, desperate, looking for allies routine. Seraphine moved away from the window, sank into a chair like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. We talked for over an hour. She tested me, asked questions about my father, my background, what I want, what I'm afraid of. I gave her truth mixed with lies, enough real emotion that she couldn't doubt it, enough careful misdirection that she didn't see the trap. And she invited you back. Tomorrow night, dinner, private, said she wanted to get to know me better, help me navigate the court. Seraphine's laugh was bitter. Probably wants to figure out how to use me or eliminate me. Both, Thrace said. Women like Isolde always keep their options open. Did she mention anything specific? Alaric asked, moving closer. Greer? The other mistresses? Plans? Not directly. But she hinted. Talked about how the palace is dangerous for women without powerful allies. How the king, you, can be unpredictable. How having friends who understand the real game is the only way to survive. Seraphine met his eyes. She's feeling me out, trying to see if I'm someone who can be brought into the fold or someone who needs to be dealt with. Which did she decide? Neither. Not yet. But she's leaning toward recruitment. I could see it in her eyes. She thinks I'm weak enough to manipulate and desperate enough to be useful. Her smile was cold. Let her think that. It's working in our favor. Alaric felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Good. That's good. You did well. I did what needed to be done. She stood, moved back to the window. But Your Majesty, you need to understand something. Isolde's not stupid. She's testing me, yes, but she's also watching you, watching how you react to me. If you show too much interest, too much concern, she'll know something's wrong. I know. Do you? She turned and her eyes were hard. Because you just rushed to my chambers the second I got back. That's not the behavior of a king who barely knows his guest. That's the behavior of someone who's invested, worried. And if Isolde has spies watching, which she probably does, she just got a very interesting piece of information. Fuck. She was right. Then we spin it, Thrace said before Alaric could respond. Make it look like the king is interested in Lady Hale romantically. Concerned because he's considering taking her as a mistress, not because they're plotting together. That could work, Seraphine said slowly. It would explain his attention. Give me a reason to spend time near him without arousing suspicion. It would also paint a target on your back the size of the palace, Alaric said flatly. The mistresses already see you as a potential rival. If they think I'm actually considering bringing you into the fold, then they'll move faster, make mistakes, reveal themselves. Seraphine's smile was sharp and dangerous. Isn't that what we want? Not at the cost of your life. My life is already forfeit, Your Majesty. The moment I rode through those gates, the moment I showed you my father's evidence, I became a target. Better to use that. Turn it into a weapon. They stared at each other across the room. Outside, the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of blood and gold. All right, Alaric said finally. We play it that way. But carefully. And you stay close to Sarah and Thrace's men at all times. I won't have you murdered in your sleep because we got careless. Agreed. Good. Then a knock at the door interrupted him. Sarah's voice came through, tight with tension. Your Majesty, you have a visitor. Says it's urgent. Who? Mistress Ven. Alaric's blood went cold. Alara, here. Now. He looked at Seraphine, saw his own alarm reflected in her eyes. She know I'm here? Don't know, Your Majesty. She just arrived, asked to see Lady Hale. When I said Lady Hale had visitors, she asked if one of them was you. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Let her in, Seraphine said quietly. We face this now. Seraphine, we don't have a choice. If she knows you're here and we send her away, that's suspicious. If we let her in and play it off as a casual visit, that's just the king checking on his guest. She straightened her dress, smoothed her hair, became the frightened northern girl again in the space of a heartbeat. Trust me. Alaric looked at Thrace, who nodded once. Let her in, he told Sarah. The door opened. Alara Ven glided in like smoke, all dark eyes and darker secrets wrapped in a simple gray dress. Your Majesty. She inclined her head, graceful and controlled. Commander Thrace. Lady Hale. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, Alaric said, injecting warmth into his voice. I was just checking on our guest, making sure she's settling in all right. How thoughtful. Alara's eyes moved from him to Seraphine and back again, calculating. I had the same idea. Thought Lady Hale might appreciate some company. The palace can be so isolating for newcomers. That's very kind, Seraphine said. Her voice was steady, but Alaric could see the tension in her shoulders. I've actually had quite a social day. Mistress Crane invited me to tea this morning. It was lovely. Isolde can be very welcoming when she chooses to be. Alara moved further into the room, her movements liquid and predatory. Though I wonder, was it wisdom or curiosity that drew you to her chambers? The question hung in the air like a blade. Both, I suppose, Seraphine said carefully. I'm new here, alone, looking for allies and friends. Mistress Crane offered both. Did she? It wasn't a question. Alara turned to Alaric, her dark eyes unreadable. Your Majesty, might I have a word? Privately? Every alarm in Alaric's head went off at once. Of course. Thrace, escort Lady Hale to dinner. I'll join you shortly. Your Majesty, Thrace started. That's an order, Commander. Thrace's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. Lady Hale? Seraphine stood, gave Alaric one last look. Be careful. And left with Thrace. The door closed. Alaric was alone with the woman who'd tried to poison him less than 24 hours ago. Alara stood very still in the center of the room, her hands folded, her expression serene. You're playing a dangerous game, Your Majesty. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? She moved closer, and Alaric had to fight the urge to step back. A mysterious woman arrives from the north, claims her father was murdered, carries warnings of conspiracy and treason, and you, who trust no one, immediately take her under your protection. Give her chambers in the palace, check on her personally. Another step closer. That's not like you. That's not like you at all. Maybe I'm attracted to her. Maybe. Or maybe she's exactly what she claims to be, a weapon aimed at your enemies. At us. Alara's smile was soft and deadly. You think I don't know what you're doing? You think Isolde doesn't suspect? We've been at this game longer than you have, Alaric. We know all the moves. He didn't correct her use of his name, didn't react to the threat in her words, just stood there, keeping his face calm, his body relaxed. If you're accusing me of something, Alara, say it plainly. I'm not accusing, I'm warning. She was close enough now that he could smell her perfume, something dark and expensive. Whatever you think you know, whatever Seraphine Hale told you, it's incomplete, partial. You're seeing shadows and calling them monsters. And if the monsters are real, then you should be very careful about which ones you fight. She reached up, trailed one finger down his chest. Because some of us bite back. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Her hand dropped. Dinner tomorrow night. Isolde's chambers. Private. Just her and your little northern girl. I wonder what they'll talk about. Girl talk, probably. Dresses and jewels and gossip. Probably. Alara turned to leave, paused at the door. Or maybe they'll talk about you. About your weaknesses, your blind spots, your tendency to trust the wrong people at the wrong time. She looked back over her shoulder. Sleep well, Your Majesty, and watch your back. The next knife might come from a direction you're not expecting. Then she was gone, and Alaric was alone in the room, his heart hammering, his mind racing. She knew. Not everything, maybe. But enough. Enough to be dangerous. Enough to accelerate whatever timeline Greer had planned. He needed to move faster. Needed to force their hand before they forced his. He left Seraphine's chambers at a run, found Thrace waiting in the corridor. She knows. How much? Enough to be a problem. We need to meet. Tonight. You, me, Seraphine. We plan the next move because Alara just changed the game. Your Majesty, if she knows, if they all know, then Seraphine walking into Isolde's chambers tomorrow is suicide. No. It's opportunity. Alaric's mind was already working through the angles. They'll be expecting us to pull back, to protect Seraphine. Instead, we push forward. We give them exactly what they expect, a scared girl walking into a trap, and we turn the trap around. How? I don't know yet, but we have until tomorrow night to figure it out. He started walking, Thrace keeping pace. Get Seraphine. Meet me in my chambers in 1 hour. And Thrace? Yes, Your Majesty? Bring weapons. Because one way or another, tomorrow night someone's going to die. The hour passed in a blur of planning and contingencies. Seraphine arrived first, still in her blue dress, but with a hardness in her eyes that said the vulnerable act was over. Thrace came next, carrying a satchel that clinked with the sound of steel and other, more dangerous things. They spread out around Alaric's table, maps of the palace, notes from Seraphine's father, intelligence reports from Thrace's network. Everything they had laid bare. Alara knows, Alaric said without preamble. Not everything, but enough. She came to Seraphine's chambers, warned me, made it clear that whatever move we're planning, they're ready for it. Then we change the plan, Seraphine said. No, we accelerate it. Alaric tapped the map. Tomorrow night, you go to Isolde's chambers as planned. You play the role. Scared, desperate, looking for protection. And when she makes her pitch, and she will make her pitch, try to recruit you, bring you into the conspiracy, you accept. Just like that? Just like that. But with a twist. He looked at Thrace. We wire her. Something small. Something they won't find even if they search her. and we record everything, every word, every admission, every piece of evidence we need to bring them down. They'll search me, Seraphine said flatly. Alara's too careful. She'll make sure Isolde searches me before any real conversation happens. Then we hide it better. Thrace, you've got people who can do that kind of thing, right? Conceal a device so well, even a thorough search won't find it. I've got a man. Former spy, works with the Military Intelligence Division. He can hide a recording crystal in a hairpin, a button, anywhere. Thrace frowned. But Your Majesty, even if we get the recording, that's just evidence of conspiracy. It's not enough to move against Greer directly. It's enough to arrest the mistresses, charge them with treason, and once they're in custody, once they realize they're going to hang... Alaric's smile was cold and sharp. People talk when they're facing the executioner, especially people who thought they were untouchable. They'll offer up Greer to save themselves. Exactly. Seraphine studied the map, her finger tracing corridors and rooms. Isolde's chambers have 2 exits, main door and a servant's entrance that leads to the back stairs. If things go wrong, if they try to kill me, that's my escape route. If things go wrong, you scream, Alaric said, and Thrace's men come through both doors with swords drawn and questions later. That'll blow the whole operation. Better blown than dead. He met her eyes. I'm not sacrificing you for this, Seraphine. The plan works or it doesn't, but you come out alive either way. That's non-negotiable. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right. I go in wired. I play the role. I get them to incriminate themselves. And if it all goes to hell, I run and your men pull me out. That's the plan. It's a terrible plan. It's the only plan we have. Alaric stood, started pacing. Thrace, get your spy. Have him prep the recording device tonight. I want Seraphine wired and tested by dawn. Yes, Your Majesty. Seraphine, you need to prepare. Mentally, emotionally. Tomorrow night, you're walking into a room with women who will kill you without blinking if they think you're a threat. You need to be perfect, flawless. One wrong word, one wrong look, and I know. Her voice was steady. I've known since the moment I rode through those gates. I'm not afraid of dying, Your Majesty. I'm afraid of dying for nothing. You won't. One way or another, we end this tomorrow. She nodded once, sharp and final, and left. Thrace lingered. Your Majesty, there's something you should know about Liana. The bruise on her wrist. That. And more. Thrace pulled out his notebook. I had someone look into it, quietly. Turns out she's been meeting with someone. A man. Not noble, not palace staff. Street clothes, rough hands. They meet in the lower city, in taverns where nobles don't go. A lover? I don't think so. The way they talk, the way he treats her, my man says it looks more like intimidation, like she owes him something and he's collecting. Alaric felt ice slide through his veins. She's being blackmailed. That would be my guess. And if she's being blackmailed, she's compromised, which means she could be working with the others, or against them, or playing her own game entirely. Fuck. Fuck. He scrubbed his hands over his face. We don't have time to deal with another variable. Not now. Want me to bring her in? Question her? Not yet. If we spook her, she might warn the others. Better to let it play out. See which way she jumps when the trap closes. He moved to the window, stared out at the night. But keep eyes on her. I want to know where she goes, who she sees, what she's doing. If she's another piece of Greer's game, I need to know now. Understood. Anything else? Just one thing. Tomorrow night, if this goes wrong, if Seraphine's cover is blown, and we have to go in hard. Thrace paused. Are you prepared to kill your mistresses? All of them, if necessary. The question hung in the air like smoke. Alaric turned from the window, met Thrace's eyes. Yes. If they're traitors, if they've been plotting to kill me, take my throne, destroy everything I've built. He felt something cold and final settle in his chest. Then they die. All of them. No mercy, no hesitation. They made their choice when they took Greer's money. Now they live with the consequences. Or die with them. Or die with them, Alaric agreed. Thrace left. The door closed. Alaric was alone with the night and his thoughts and the weight of decisions that could reshape an empire or burn it to ash. Tomorrow the masks came off. Tomorrow the knives came out. And tomorrow, one way or another, the Crimson Court would run red with A sound outside his door. Soft. Careful. The sound of someone who didn't want to be heard. Alaric's hand went to the blade at his hip, muscle memory from 20 years of war. The door opened, and Liana Frost stumbled in, her face tear-streaked and terrified, blood on her hands and a knife clutched in her shaking fingers. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, Your Majesty. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know who else to trust. They're going to kill me. They know I told you. They know everything." She collapsed to her knees, the knife clattering to the floor, and Alaric stood frozen, his mind racing, trying to process what the fuck was happening. "Who's going to kill you, Liana?" "Them. All of them. Isolde, Vivian, Ilara. They know I was going to warn you. They know I was going to—" Her words cut off in a choked sob. And Alaric realized, with the kind of cold certainty that came from years of survival, that the game had just changed again, that the trap he'd set was about to spring early, and that come dawn, nothing. Alaric stared at the woman on her knees, at the blood on her hands, at the knife on his floor, and felt the world tilt sideways. "Get up." Liana didn't move, just stayed there, shaking, tears cutting tracks through the grime on her face. "I said get up." His voice was iron, cold, the voice that had commanded armies and broken rebellions. "Now!" She stumbled to her feet, swaying like she might collapse again. The blood on her hands was still wet, fresh, and there was a cut on her arm, shallow but bleeding. "Whose blood is that, Liana?" "Mine. His. I don't know." Her voice was breaking apart, words coming in gasps. "He came to my chambers, said they'd sent him, said I had one chance to keep my mouth shut, or they'd make sure I never spoke again, and I grabbed the knife and— Who sent him? I don't know. He didn't say. Just that they knew. That I'd betrayed them. That I was going to warn you about tomorrow night, and they couldn't let that happen." Alaric's blood went cold. "Tomorrow night? The dinner? You knew about it?" "I knew enough. Pieces, whispers. Isolde's been planning something for weeks, meeting with people, sending messages." Liana's eyes were wild, desperate. "I didn't know what it was. Not exactly, but I heard her talking with Ilara 2 nights ago. Heard them say that after tomorrow everything changes, that you'd be dealt with and they'd finally—" She stopped, choked on her own words. "Finally what?" "Put someone else on the throne, someone they could control." The words fell into the room like stones into deep water. Alaric moved to his desk, grabbed the bottle of whiskey there, took a long pull. Then another. His mind was racing, sorting through possibilities, discarding impossibilities, trying to find solid ground in a situation that was turning to quicksand under his feet. "You said they sent him. Who's they? Isolde and Ilara? Or more?" "I don't know. Maybe Vivian. Maybe all of them, except—" She stopped again. "Except who?" "Me. They don't trust me. Never have. I'm too weak, too emotional, too much of a liability." Her laugh was bitter, broken. "They kept me around because you liked breaking me, because it amused you, but they never let me into the real plans, never told me anything that mattered. Until tonight. Until tonight." She wrapped her arms around herself, still shaking. "The man who came to my chambers. He wasn't palace guard, wasn't anyone I recognized, spoke with an accent, Western provinces maybe. And he said they were cleaning house, that loose ends were being tied up, that I should have been more careful about what I said and who I said it to." "What did you say? Who did you tell?" "No one. I swear. I haven't talked to anyone except—" Her eyes widened. "Except Marjorie. 3 days ago. She asked me if I'd heard anything strange, if Isolde or Ilara had been acting differently. I said yes, that they'd been secretive, meeting privately. I thought she was just fishing for gossip. I didn't think Marjorie's one of them, or she's being used by them, or she reported our conversation and they decided I was a risk." Liana looked at her bloody hands like she didn't recognize them. "I didn't mean to stab him. He grabbed me, put his hand over my mouth, said he'd make it quick. And the knife was right there on my vanity, and I just reacted." "Where is he now?" "I don't know. I ran. Left him bleeding on my floor. Came straight here." She looked up and her eyes were hollow. "If he's dead, I killed him. If he's alive, he'll report back to them. Either way, I'm finished." Alaric set the bottle down, moved to the door, pulled it open. Marcus was there, one-eyed and alert. Get Commander Thrace. Now. And send someone to Mistress Frost's chambers. Quietly. I want to know if there's a body there, and if so, what condition it's in. Your Majesty. Do it. Move. Marcus moved. Alaric closed the door, turned back to Lyanna. She'd sunk into a chair, still trembling, still staring at her hands. You said you were going to warn me. About what, exactly? About tomorrow night. About the dinner. Isolde invited that northern girl, Seraphine, to her chambers. Private dinner. Just the two of them. Lyanna's voice was flat now, empty. But it's a trap. They're going to search her, question her, find out what she knows and who she's told. And if she's working with you, if she's the weapon you're using against them, they'll kill her. They'll make it look like an accident, a suicide. A girl who couldn't handle the pressure of court life, the grief of losing her father, the shame of whatever story they invent. She finally looked up. You can't let her go. You can't let her walk into that room. I know. His mind was already racing ahead, recalculating. The plan was blown, worse than blown. It was turned against them. Did they say anything else? Anything about timing? About what happens after? Just that once Seraphine was dealt with, once they confirmed you had no other allies, they'd move on you directly, within days, maybe hours. Lyanna stood, unsteady. Your Majesty, they've been planning this for years. They have people everywhere, guards, servants, nobles. You can't trust anyone. I don't. He moved to his desk, pulled out paper and pen, started writing fast. Except the 3 people in this palace who haven't tried to kill me yet. A knock. Thrace entered, took one look at Lyanna's blood-covered state, and his hand went to his sword. Stand down. She's not the threat. Alaric kept writing. The threat is Isolde, Ilara, and apparently Marjorie. Maybe Vivian, too, though that's still unclear. They know about tomorrow night. They're planning to kill Seraphine, and after that, me. How do they know? Because someone talked. Someone they have leverage over. He glanced at Lyanna. Tell him. She did. Haltingly. Every word like pulling teeth, the man in her chambers, the warning, the knife, the blood. Thrace listened without interrupting. When she finished, his face was stone. I sent someone to check her chambers. If there's a body... There's a body, came a voice from the doorway. They all turned. Sarah stood there, young and grim, blood on his boots. Dead. Stabbed through the ribs, bled out on the floor. I've got men moving him now quietly. But Your Majesty, he wasn't alone. There were signs of a second person, boot prints, fresh, leading out through the servants' corridor. Witness, Thrace said flatly. Someone saw what happened. Maybe the partner of the dead man. Maybe a servant who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Either way, they know Lyanna killed one of theirs and ran to me. Alaric finished the note he was writing, sealed it. Sarah, take this to Lady Hale. Wake her if you have to. Tell her the plan's changed. Tell her to pack light and be ready to move in 30 minutes. Move where, Your Majesty? Somewhere they can't reach her. Somewhere defensible. He turned to Thrace. The old garrison, east side of the palace. Hasn't been used in years, but it's solid. Stone walls, one entrance, easy to defend. That's where we keep prisoners awaiting trial. Perfect. Because as of right now, that's exactly what these women are. Prisoners. They just don't know it yet. He grabbed his coat, started strapping on weapons. Sword, dagger. The kind of hardware you wore when you expected violence. Thrace, I want the garrison locked down. Guards on the door. No one in or out except people we trust absolutely. How many people is that? You, Marcus, Sarah, maybe 5 others, that's it. Everyone else is suspect. He turned to Lyanna. You're coming with us. You're a witness. Maybe the only witness we have who can testify to the conspiracy. They'll kill me. Not if I kill them first. His smile was cold and sharp and absolutely without mercy. And Lyanna, if you're lying, if this is some elaborate setup, some way to get me to expose my hand, I'm not lying. Her voice was steady for the first time since she'd stumbled through his door. I may be weak. I may be pathetic. But I'm not a traitor. Not to you. He studied her, looking for the lie, the angle, the trap, found nothing but exhaustion and terror and a kind of desperate honesty that came from someone who had nothing left to lose. All right, I believe you. Now move. They moved. through corridors that suddenly felt like enemy territory, past guards who might be loyal or might be bought, past servants who might be innocent or might be spies. The garrison was exactly where Alaric remembered, a squat stone building on the east side built during the old wars when the palace had needed to defend itself from outside threats. Now it would defend against inside ones. Sarah arrived 5 minutes later with Seraphine, who looked wide awake and furious. "What the hell is going on?" "Plans blown. They know about tomorrow night. They're going to kill you." Alaric pulled her inside, slammed the heavy oak door shut, Thrace through the bolt. "We're moving up the timeline." "To when?" "Tonight. Now." He turned to Thrace. "How many men can you get here in the next hour? Men we trust absolutely." 10, maybe 12 if I pull from the night watch." "Do it. And I want the Mistresses' chambers sealed. No one in, no one out. They're under house arrest as of this moment." "On what charge?" "Conspiracy to commit treason. Attempted murder. Take your pick." He moved to the window, looked out over the darkened palace. "They wanted to move against me? Fine. I'm moving first." "Your Majesty," Seraphine said quietly, "if you arrest them now, without proof, without evidence they can't deny, you'll start a war. The nobles who support them, the houses who've been bought, they'll rally. You'll have open rebellion within a week. Then I'd better make sure the proof is fucking ironclad." He turned to Liana. "You said you heard Isolde and Alara talking 2 nights ago. Where?" "Isolde's chambers. I was passing by. The door was cracked. I stopped to listen." "Did they mention names? Greer? Anyone else?" "Greer, yes. And others. Lord Vance, Lady Moreau, Duke Castellan from the southern provinces." Her brow furrowed, remembering. "They talked about promises that had been made, positions that would be granted once the new order was established. Alara would become royal consort. Isolde would govern the northern territories. Vivian would control the military." "And the new king?" Alaric kept his voice level. "Did they say who that would be?" "They didn't use a name, just called him the chosen one. Said he was young, malleable, perfect for their needs. A puppet. They were going to replace him with a fucking puppet. Thrace. I want those names. Vance, Moreau, Castellan. I want their whereabouts confirmed. If they're in the capital, I want them detained, quietly, before they can flee or send warning. That's 3 major noble houses, Your Majesty. If we arrest them without... Without what? Without kissing their asses first? Without giving them time to destroy evidence and scatter to their estates?" His voice was hard, final. "We're past the point of politics, Thrace. We're at war. They just don't know it yet." Silence fell over the garrison, heavy, tense. Then Seraphine spoke, her voice cutting through like a blade. "There's another way." Everyone turned to look at her. "I still go to dinner tomorrow. Let them think the plan is proceeding. Let them search me, question me, try to break me. And when they do," her smile was cold, "I give them what they want. I tell them I'm working with you, that you know about Greer, that you're planning to move against them." "That's suicide," Thrace said flatly. "No, that's bait. Because when I tell them, when they think they've won, they'll call for backup. They'll send for Greer or his people. They'll make the mistake of consolidating their forces in one place at one time." She looked at Alaric. "And that's when you hit them. All at once. Overwhelming force. No warning, no mercy. You'll be in the room when that happens, surrounded by people who want you dead. Then make sure your men are fast." She didn't blink, didn't flinch. "This is the play, Your Majesty. It's risky, but it's the only way we get everyone, Greer included." Alaric stared at her. This woman who'd ridden 3 weeks alone, who'd walked into a palace full of vipers knowing she might not walk out, who was now calmly proposing to put herself in the center of a death trap and trust him to pull her out before it closed. She was insane. She was brilliant. She was going to get herself killed. "No. Your Majesty, I said no. I'm not sending you in there. Not after what Liana just told us. They're too paranoid, too careful. The second you walk through that door, they'll know something's wrong. Then we make them think nothing's wrong. We continue as planned. I show up, scared, desperate, looking for allies." She moved closer, and her eyes were hard as stone. "You said you needed proof, evidence they can't deny. This is how we get it. We let them incriminate themselves on their own terms, in their own words, thinking they've already won. And if they kill you before we can intervene,
Then you avenge me, and you burn them all to ash. She didn't blink. My father died for this. I'm willing to do the same. Well, I'm not willing to let you. The words came out harsher than he intended, sharper, with an edge that had nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with something he didn't want to examine too closely. Seraphine's expression shifted, softened, just for a moment.
this isn't about what you're willing to let me do, Your Majesty. This is about what needs to be done. Her voice was gentle now, almost kind. You've been fighting this battle alone for too long, surrounded by enemies, unable to trust anyone. Let me help you. Let me be the weapon you need. Weapons break. Then get a new one. She smiled, sad and sharp. But use this one while you have it. Thrace cleared his throat. Your Majesty, if I may, the girl has a point. We need irrefutable evidence. Testimony isn't enough. They'll claim Lyanna's lying, that she's bitter, that she's trying to save herself. But if we can get them on record, admitting to conspiracy, naming Greer, we'd have everything we need, Alaric finished. He scrubbed his hands over his face, feeling the stubble rasp. Fuck, this is insane. Most good plans are, Seraphine said. He looked at her. Really looked. Saw the determination in her eyes, the anger, the grief for her father mixed with cold, calculated rage. She was going to do this whether he agreed or not. Better to support her than watch her walk into hell alone. All right, we do it your way, but with modifications. He turned to Thrace. I want men outside Isolde's chambers, close enough to respond in seconds, and I want a signal, something Seraphine can do if things go wrong. Like what? I don't know. Break something. Scream. Anything that lets us know she needs extraction. They'll hear her before we do. Then we position someone inside. Hidden. Alaric's mind was racing now, building the plan piece by piece. Isolde's chambers have that servant's entrance Seraphine mentioned. We put someone there, behind the wall, listening. If things go sideways, they come through fast and hard. That could work, Thrace admitted. But we'd need someone small. Someone who can hide in tight spaces and stay absolutely silent. I know someone, Sarah said. All eyes turned to him. My sister. Trained her myself. She's small, fast, quiet as death, and she owes Lady Hale's family a blood debt same as I do. Can you trust her? With my life, Your Majesty. And yours. Then get her, brief her, have her in position by tomorrow evening. Alaric looked at Seraphine. You still sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Good, because backing out now would be... The door exploded inward, not opened. Exploded. Wood splintering, hinges shrieking, the heavy oak slamming against the stone wall with a sound like thunder. And through the opening came 6 men in dark clothes, swords drawn, faces covered. Alaric's blade was in his hand before conscious thought. Thrace moved left, Sarah right, both of them putting themselves between the attackers and their king. The first man threw died with Thrace's sword in his throat. The second stumbled over his corpse, took Sarah's dagger through the eye. The third, fourth, and fifth came together, coordinated, professional. Not random thugs. Trained fighters. Assassins. Alaric met the third man's blade with his own, the clash of steel on steel ringing through the garrison like a bell. The man was good, fast, but Alaric had been fighting since he was 16 and he knew every dirty trick ever invented. He feinted high, went low, opened the man's belly with a vicious cut that spilled blood and worse across the stone floor. The fourth man got past Thrace, came at Alaric from the side. Would have taken his head off if Lyanna hadn't thrown herself forward, screaming, grabbing the assassin's arm. It was enough, just barely. Alaric spun, drove his sword through the man's ribs, felt the blade scrape bone on the way through. The fifth man grabbed Seraphine, put a knife to her throat, started backing toward the broken door. Nobody move or she dies. Everyone froze. The garrison was suddenly horribly silent except for the sound of bleeding men dying on the floor. Drop your weapons, the assassin said. His voice was calm, professional, like he did this every day. All of you, or I open her throat right here. Do it and you die 2 seconds later, Alaric said, his voice flat and cold. Then we both die. That an acceptable trade, Your Majesty? Alaric met Seraphine's eyes, saw fear there, but also rage and calculation. She was planning something. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't do anything stupid." "Too late," she said, and drove her head backward into the assassin's face. His nose shattered with a wet crunch. The knife at her throat wavered. Seraphine twisted, got her hands on his wrist, bit down hard enough to draw blood. The assassin screamed, threw her off, raised his knife. Alaric's throwing dagger took him in the chest before the blade could fall. The man stumbled backward, looked down at the steel sprouting from his ribs, and collapsed. Silence again. Heavier now, thick with death and gunpowder stink and the copper smell of fresh blood. Seraphine stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, a cut on her neck where the knife had nicked her. "Well," she said, her voice shaking only slightly. "That was exciting." Thrace moved to the door, looked out into the corridor. "Clear, for now. But whoever sent these will know they failed. They'll send more. Or they'll accelerate their timeline." Alaric cleaned his blade on a dead man's cloak, sheathed it. "We need to move. Now. All of us. Somewhere actually defensible." "The Royal Vault," Liana said. Everyone looked at her. "In the sublevel. Stone walls 3 feet thick. One entrance. Iron door that takes 4 men to open. Your father built it to protect the crown jewels during sieges. It's also a tomb if they seal us in. Better a tomb than a grave." She moved to the broken door, looked out. "They're coming for us, Your Majesty. All of them. The Mistresses. Greer. Everyone who's been bought and paid for. We stay here, we die. We move to the vault, we have a chance." Alaric looked at Thrace. "She's right. The vault's our best option. We can hold it for days if we have to, long enough to get word out, call for reinforcements." "Reinforcements from where? We don't know who we can trust." "Then we trust no one," Seraphine said. "We hole up, we survive, and we wait for them to make a mistake." "They already made a mistake," Alaric said, looking at the bodies on the floor. "They came at us in the open, with witnesses. That's desperation, which means we're closer to winning than they want us to be." "We're closer to dying," Thrace muttered, but he moved to the door, checked the corridor again. "Clear, but we need to move fast. Sarah, you take point. I'll bring up the rear. Your Majesty, you and the women stay in the middle." They moved, through corridors that seemed darker now, more threatening, past windows that showed nothing but night and rain and the occasional flash of lightning that turned everything bone white. The vault was 3 levels down, through a maze of passages that most people didn't know existed. Alaric had been here once, years ago, when his father had shown him where the real power of the kingdom was stored. Not in gold, not in jewels, but in secrets, documents, proof of crimes and deals and arrangements that kept the empire balanced on a knife's edge. The iron door was exactly as he remembered. Massive, imposing, covered in runes that were supposed to be protective, but mostly just looked threatening. It took all 5 of them to pull it open. The hinges screamed like dying animals. Inside was darkness, stone walls, the smell of old paper and older secrets. Thrace lit a torch. The light pushed back the shadows, revealed shelves lined with books and boxes and sealed containers. "Welcome home," Alaric muttered, stepping inside. They pulled the door shut, through the internal bolts, locked themselves in with the dead past and an uncertain future. "Now what?" Seraphine asked. "Now we wait," Alaric said, "and we plan. And we figure out how to turn this clusterfuck into a victory." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. They weren't planning anymore. They were surviving, and survival meant doing things that couldn't be undone, meant crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed, meant becoming the kind of king his father had warned him about, the kind who ruled through fear instead of respect, through violence instead of wisdom. He looked at Seraphine, standing in the torchlight, blood on her dress and fury in her eyes. "You still want to go to that dinner tomorrow?" She laughed, short, bitter, broken. "I don't think they're going to invite me anymore. Probably not." He moved to one of the shelves, started pulling down boxes. "So we changed the plan. Again. We stop reacting and start acting. We make them come to us on our terms." "How?" "By giving them what they want." He opened a box, pulled out documents, old ones, sealed with wax and signed with names he recognized. "My father kept records. Every dirty secret, every deal, every piece of leverage he needed to keep the nobles in line." He looked up.
Greer's in here, I guarantee it. And if we can find proof that he's been planning this for years, proof that connects him to the conspiracy. We don't just have evidence, Thrace finished. We have a weapon. Exactly. Alaric started sorting through papers, his hands steady despite the exhaustion pulling at him. So we dig. We find everything we can, and tomorrow, when they come for us, and they will come, we'll be ready. And if they don't come? Lyanna asked quietly. If they decide to wait us out, starve us, turn the palace against us, then we go to them. Alaric's smile was cold and sharp and absolutely merciless. And we burn everything that gets in our way. The hours crawled past. They worked in shifts. Alaric and Thrace sorting through documents. Seraphine and Lyanna organizing what they found. Sarah standing guard at the door, listening for sounds of pursuit. By dawn, they had a pile of evidence 3 feet high. Correspondence between Greer and half the noble houses in the empire. Financial records showing payments. Contracts promising positions and power once the current king was removed. And buried at the bottom of one box, sealed with wax that had turned yellow with age, was a letter in Greer's own hand, dated 5 years ago, addressed to someone called the Architect, outlining a plan to place agents in the palace, to seduce the king, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The letter ended with a single line that made Alaric's blood run cold. The Ven girl is in position, young, beautiful, perfect for our needs. He'll never suspect her until it's too late. Seraphine read it over his shoulder, went very still. Alara Ven. She's been here for 5 years, since the beginning. Since before the beginning, Alaric said quietly. She was the first. The foundation. Everything else, Isolde, Vivian, maybe even Marjorie, they all came after, building on what Alara established. Your Majesty, Thrace said, his voice tight. If Alara's been here that long, if she's that deeply embedded, she knows things. Access codes, guard rotations, weak points in the palace security, which means when they come for us, she'll be leading them. Alaric set the letter down carefully, and she'll know exactly how to get to us. Then we leave, Seraphine said. Now, before a sound outside the vault. Footsteps, multiple, moving fast. Sarah pressed his ear to the door, listened, then turned. At least 20, maybe more. Coming this way, they know we're here. How long until they reach us? 5 minutes, maybe less. Alaric looked around the vault, at the stone walls that were supposed to protect them, but now felt like a trap, at the single door that was the only way in or out, at the faces of the people who'd bet everything on trusting him. We can't fight 20 men in a confined space. No, Thrace agreed, but we can make them pay for every inch. Choke point at the door. They can only come through 1 or 2 at a time. And when they overwhelm us through sheer numbers? Then we die well. Alaric pulled his sword. The weight of it was familiar, comforting. He'd carried a blade for more than half his life. Had killed his first man with one when he was barely old enough to shave. Never thought he'd die with one in his hand. But there were worse ways to go. Lyanna, Seraphine, get behind us. If they break through, if Thrace and I fall, you run. Find a way out. Get to someone we can trust. Tell them everything. There's nowhere to run, Seraphine said flatly. This is it. We make our stand here. The footsteps were closer now, voices, shouting, the sound of steel on steel as swords were drawn. Alaric moved to the door, took position on one side. Thrace took the other. Sarah stood ready with his daggers. The women stood behind them, and Alaric saw Lyanna pick up a fallen torch, holding it like a weapon. The door shuddered. Someone was testing it, pushing. Then a voice came through the iron, female, cold, familiar. Your Majesty, it's over. Come out and we'll make this quick. Resist, and we'll make it last for days. Alara. Alaric met Thrace's eyes. The commander's expression was grim but determined. Tell Greer he can go fuck himself, Alaric called through the door. And tell him when I get out of here, he's the first one I'm coming for. You're not getting out, Alaric. You're dying in there. Today. Now. One way or another. A pause. But the women with you don't have to die. Send them out. Lyanna, Seraphine. They can walk away from this. You have my word. Your word isn't worth the breath you use to speak it. Then they die with you. The cold in her voice deepened. Last chance. Open the door. Come out. Face this with whatever dignity you have left.
Or what? You'll break it down? That door's 3 inches of solid iron. You'll be there for... The explosion cut off his words. Not outside. Inside. A small charge, placed carefully where the hinges met the stone, where the structural weakness was hidden. The door didn't fall, but it shifted, buckled. The seals broke, and through the gap poured smoke and fire and men with covered faces and murder in their eyes. Alaric's blade found the first one, opened his throat. The second got Thrace's sword through the gut, but more were coming, too many, pouring through the damaged door like water through a broken dam. Sarah went down, 3 blades in him at once. Liana screamed, threw her torch, caught someone's face, and Seraphine grabbed the letter, the evidence, the proof, and ran for the shelves, for the darkness at the back of the vault where the shadows were deepest. Alaric saw her go, tried to follow, got blocked by 2 men who came at him from both sides. He killed one, wounded the other, spun to find Seraphine, and saw Alara step through the broken door, calm and composed, a blade in her hand that was already red with blood. She looked at him, smiled. "I told you to watch your back, Your Majesty. I told you the next knife would come from an unexpected direction." She moved into the vault like she owned it. "Did you really think you could win? Against me? Against us?" "You haven't won yet, haven't I?" She gestured to the bodies on the floor. Sarah. Liana, bleeding from a cut that had opened her from shoulder to hip. Thrace, still fighting, but surrounded. "Your allies are dead or dying. Your proof is about to burn, and you..." She raised her blade. "You're about to join them." Alaric's grip tightened on his sword. Blood ran down his arm from a cut he didn't remember taking. His shoulders burned, his lungs ached, but he was still standing, still fighting, still. Looking for this? Alara held up a piece of paper. The letter. The proof. Seraphine stood behind her, a blade at her throat, held by a man twice her size. "She tried to hide it," Alara continued, her voice conversational. "Sweet, feudal, dull, but sweet." She glanced at the paper, then at Alaric. Such damning evidence, such perfect proof of conspiracy and treason. Too bad it's about to become ash. She held it to a torch. The paper caught, burned, turned to smoke and memory. And with it went the last chance of proving anything, of stopping this, of saving... "Now," Alara said softly, "you're going to do exactly as I say, or I'm going to have my associate cut this girl's throat and make you watch while..." The paper turned to ash between Alara's fingers, black flakes drifting down like snow in hell. Alaric watched it burn and felt something inside him shift, not break. Shift, like a bone setting wrong, healing crooked, turning into something harder and meaner than it had been before. "You think that was the only copy?" His voice was quiet, steady, the kind of calm that came before violence. Alara's smile flickered, just for a second. "There are no other copies. Your father was meticulous. One document, one record, one truth." She dropped the ashes, brushed her hands clean. "And now it's gone." "You're right. My father was meticulous." Alaric shifted his weight, blade still ready, eyes tracking every person in the vault. So meticulous that he had a scribe make duplicates of everything, stored them in 3 separate locations. The vault was just the closest. The lie came smooth as silk, perfect, flawless. And Alara's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" He smiled, cold and sharp. "Your man there, the one holding Seraphine. Ask him where he found her. Go ahead." Alara glanced at the man. He hesitated, then spoke. "Back shelves, near the old record boxes. She was stuffing papers into her dress." "Show me." The man forced Seraphine forward, blade still at her throat. She moved stiffly, carefully, her eyes locked on Alaric's. She'd understood. Smart girl. They reached the shelves. The man yanked Seraphine's collar down, exposing papers stuffed against her skin. Not the letter. Other documents. Random shit Alaric's father had kept because he never threw anything away, but Alara couldn't see that from where she stood. "Pull them out," she ordered. The man shifted his grip, reached for the papers. Seraphine moved, not away. Toward. She drove her elbow back into the man's gut, twisted, got her hands on his wrist, and bit down hard enough to feel bone. The man screamed. His blade dropped. Seraphine caught it, spun, and opened his throat in one smooth motion. Blood sprayed, the man fell, and chaos erupted.
Alaric was moving before the body hit the ground. His blade found the nearest attacker, drove through ribs, pulled free. Thrace roared something wordless, broke free from the men surrounding him, killed two before they could react. Alara shouted orders, but her voice was drowned out by steel on steel, screams, the wet sounds of men dying badly. Alaric fought like a demon. No finesse, no technique, just raw, brutal efficiency honed over 20 years of war. He killed a man with a throat punch, another with his dagger through the eye, a third by grabbing a fallen sword and opening him from groin to sternum. The vault was too small, too cramped. Bodies piled up fast, slick with blood, making the stone floor treacherous. Someone grabbed Alaric from behind. He threw his head back, felt a nose break, drove his elbow into ribs. The grip loosened. He spun, saw Vivian standing there with murder in her eyes and a blade in each hand. "You fucking bastard," she hissed. "You think you can destroy us? We built you. We made you into what you are." "You made me into nothing." He blocked her first strike. Her second, felt the impact jar up his arm. "I was a king before you cunts ever crawled into my bed. You were a soldier playing at royalty." She came at him fast, both blades moving in patterns that spoke of serious training. "We gave you legitimacy, made the nobles accept you, and this is how you repay us? You plotted to kill me. Only because you were too stupid to see the bigger picture." She feinted left, went right, opened a cut across his shoulder. Greer would have been a better king. Controllable, predictable. You were always too wild, too violent. "Funny thing about violence," Alaric said, catching her wrist, twisting until bones ground together. "It's only a problem when you're on the receiving end." He drove his sword through her chest, felt it scrape spine on the way through. Vivian's eyes went wide, shocked, like she couldn't believe he'd actually do it. "Told you I'd kill you," he said quietly. "Should have listened." He pulled the blade free. She fell. Across the vault, Thrace had his back to the wall, 3 men dead at his feet, 2 more circling him like wolves. One lunged. Thrace caught him with a sword through the gut, but the second got past his guard, opened a gash across his ribs that bled like a river. "Thrace!" Alaric started toward him, got blocked by 2 more attackers. Cut one down. The other was faster, better. Got inside his guard and drove a knife toward his throat. A blade sprouted from the man's neck. He fell. Seraphine stood behind him, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't hers. "Thanks." "Move." She shoved past him, grabbed Thrace's arm, pulled him away from the remaining attacker. "Fall back, the shelf corner, defensible position." They moved as a unit. Alaric in front, Seraphine and Thrace behind, backing toward the deepest corner of the vault, where shelves created a natural choke point. Bodies littered the floor. At least 15 dead. Maybe more. But more were coming through the broken door, and Alara stood in the center of the carnage like a dark goddess, directing traffic, calling orders. "Isolde, now!" The blonde woman appeared in the doorway, immaculate despite the violence, her green eyes cold as winter. "Still alive, my love? How inconvenient." "For you," Alaric shot back. "When this is over, when I'm standing on your corpse, I'm going to piss on your grave." Such crude language. "This is why you needed us, to civilize you, to—" "Shut the fuck up and fight me or get out of my sight." Isolde's smile was sharp as broken glass. "With pleasure." She came at him with a rapier, fast and precise, the kind of weapon that required skill and speed over strength. Alaric met her with his bastard sword, heavy and brutal, designed to break through armor and bone. Steel rang against steel. She was good. Better than Vivian. Trained by masters, probably, back in whatever noble house had spawned her. But Alaric had been trained by war, by necessity, by the understanding that every fight could be your last. He didn't try to match her speed, just waited, patient, letting her tire herself out with flourishes and complicated attacks. Then he moved. One heavy swing that she barely blocked. The impact drove her back 2 steps. He followed, swung again, felt her blade bend under the force. "You can't win," she said, breathing hard now. "Even if you kill me. Kill all of us. Greer has 50 men in the palace, maybe more. You're surrounded. Then I'll die surrounded by your corpses." Another swing.
This one she dodged, but it forced her into the wall. Seems like a fair trade. You're insane.
No, I'm done being played. He fainted high, went low, opened her thigh with a cut that made her scream. Done being manipulated, done being your fucking puppet. She stumbled. Blood poured down her leg. Her rapier wavered. Alaric drove his sword through her heart. She slid down the wall, leaving a red smear, her eyes still open, still shocked. 2 down. 3 to go. If Marjorie was even part of this, if Liana had been telling the truth about which mistresses were bought. Liana. Alaric looked around the vault, searching for her. Found her slumped against a shelf, the cut across her torso worse than he'd thought. She was holding her guts in with both hands, her face white as bone. Seraphine, help her. I can't. There's nothing. Seraphine's voice broke. She's dying. Then make her comfortable, Christ. He turned back to the fight, blocked an incoming strike, killed the man who'd made it. Thrace, status. Still breathing? Commander's voice was tight with pain. Ribs broken, maybe lung punctured, but I can fight. Good, because we're about to get real busy. Alara was advancing now, 6 men with her, all armed, all professional. She'd stopped trying to be clever, stopped trying to manipulate. Now she was just going to overwhelm them through numbers. Last chance, Alaric? Surrender, die quickly, or watch your people suffer. How about option 3? I kill you and everyone's stupid enough to follow you. You're bleeding from 5 different wounds. Your commander can barely stand. The girl's never held a sword before today. You think you can win this? I think I'd rather die trying than live on my knees. He raised his sword. So come on, you traitorous cunt. Let's finish this. She came. All of them came. It was butchery, not a fight, not a battle, just raw, desperate survival. Alaric's world narrowed to the space in front of him. The men trying to kill him. The openings he could exploit. The blade in his hand that kept moving, kept cutting, kept finding flesh. Someone got past his guard, drove a dagger into his side. He felt it punch through, felt it scrape bone, felt the hot rush of blood. Didn't stop, killed the man, pulled the blade out, kept fighting. Thrace went down. Not dead, not yet, but down, blood pooling under him, his sword fallen from nerveless fingers. Seraphine screamed his name, grabbed his blade, tried to protect him. She was brave, fierce, everything Alaric had thought she was. But she wasn't a fighter. One of Alara's men disarmed her with a casual twist, kicked her legs out from under her, put a blade to her throat. Stop, Alara said. Everyone stop. The fighting paused. Men stepped back, breathing hard, weapons ready. Alaric stood in the center of the carnage, sword dripping, chest heaving, the wound in his side screaming. It's over, Alara said. You've lost. Drop your weapon. Fuck you. Drop it, or I have him cut her throat right now. Alaric looked at Seraphine, at her eyes, saw fear there, yes, but also rage, and determination, and something else. Something that said, do what you have to do. His fingers tightened on his sword. I said, drop it. No. Then she dies. Alara nodded at her man. The blade pressed against Seraphine's throat. Blood welled. A thin red line that would become a flood in seconds. Wait. The voice came from the doorway. Weak. Broken. But familiar. Everyone turned. Marjorie stood there, supported by 2 guards. But these weren't Alara's men. These wore royal colors. Palace guard. Real ones. And behind them stood Commander Kael, the old weapons master, with about 20 soldiers in full armor. What the fuck? Alara breathed. You talk too much, Marjorie said. Her voice was steadier now, stronger. Always did. Loved the sound of your own voice. Made my job so much easier. Your job? Listening, recording, reporting everything you stupid bitches said and did. She pushed away from the guard, stood on her own. You think I was just another mistress? Another pretty face? I've been working for military intelligence for 3 years. Every conversation, every plot, every payment from Greer, I heard it, recorded it, sent it up the chain. Alara's face went white. That's impossible. Is it? Because the evidence I've collected over the last 6 months is currently sitting in front of the High Council, with testimony, signed affidavits,
Proof that you, Isolde, Vivian, and about 15 noble houses committed high treason. She smiled, cold and vicious. You're fucked, all of you. You lying little... Careful. These men have orders to kill anyone who makes a threatening move. Marjorie looked past Alara to Alaric. Your Majesty, are you all right? Been better, been worse. He lowered his sword, felt his legs shake. Thrace? Alive. Kael moved into the vault, knelt beside the fallen commander. Barely. We need a healer. Now. 2 soldiers ran. The man holding Seraphine hesitated, looked at Alara. Let her go, Marjorie said quietly, or I'll have you shot where you stand. The blade dropped. Seraphine scrambled away, ran to Alaric's side. You're hurt. I'm always hurt. He put an arm around her, more for support than affection, though right now he'd take either. Liana? Dead, Kael said bluntly. Bled out about 2 minutes ago. She went fast. Didn't suffer much. Alaric closed his eyes, felt something twist in his chest. Liana had been weak, pathetic, everything he'd hated about the Mistresses. But she'd tried. At the end, she'd tried to do the right thing. That had to count for something. What about Alara's men? Most of them are surrendering, the smart ones anyway. Kael stood, wiped blood off his hands. We've got teams sweeping the palace, arresting anyone on Marjorie's list. It'll take hours, but we'll get them all. And Greer? Already in custody. Picked him up at his estate about 3 hours ago. Marjorie moved closer, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. He was packing, getting ready to run. We caught him with evidence, documents, gold, enough to convict him 10 times over. How long have you known, Alaric asked, about all of this? Since the beginning. Since Isolde first approached me about joining the Mistresses. She shrugged. Military intelligence recruited me out of a noble house that went bankrupt. Needed someone on the inside. Someone who could get close to you, to the Mistresses, to the conspiracy. I volunteered. You could have told me. No, I couldn't. You were compromised, surrounded by traitors, sleeping with them, trusting them. If I'd told you, they would have known within hours. She looked at Alara, who stood frozen, her face a mask of rage and disbelief. I had to let it play out, had to gather enough evidence to take down everyone at once. And tonight, the attack on the garrison accelerated their timeline, made them desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. She gestured at the carnage. This was their mistake, attacking a king with witnesses, with survivors who can testify. Alaric looked at Alara, at the woman who'd tried to poison him, who'd plotted for years to put him in the ground and replace him with Greer's puppet. You have anything to say? Alara's smile was cold and broken. Just that you won't last. The Empire's rotten. The nobles are rotten. You killed 3 mistresses tonight, but there are 100 more just like us, waiting, plotting, biding their time. Then I'll kill them too. His voice was flat, final. Every single one, until the only people left in this palace are ones too terrified to betray me or too loyal to try. That's not a kingdom, that's a prison. Then I'll be a prisoner with a crown. He gestured to Kael's men. Take her, take all of them. Anyone still alive who fought against us tonight. They're traitors. They hang at dawn. Your Majesty, one of the soldiers said, that's over 20 people. We don't have enough. Then build more gallows. I want them dead. All of them. No trials, no delays. They attacked their king. The penalty is death. Your Majesty, that's an order. Silence fell over the vault. Heavy. Absolute. Then Kael nodded. You heard him. Move them out. Separate cells. Heavy guard. Anyone tries to escape, kill them. The soldiers moved. Alara was dragged away, still silent, still proud even in chains. The vault slowly emptied. Bodies were carried out. Blood was tracked through corridors that would take weeks to clean properly. Alaric stood in the center of it all, Seraphine at his side, Thrace being carried past on a stretcher, and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness, cold and vast and absolute. Your Majesty, Marjorie's voice was soft. Careful. You should see a healer. Those wounds. We'll wait. He moved toward the door, stumbled, caught himself on a shelf.
I need to address the court. Need to make a statement. Can't show weakness. Not now. You're barely standing.
I fought entire battles barely standing. I'll manage. He looked at her. Really looked. Saw not the golden girl playing at seduction, but a soldier who'd spent 3 years undercover in hell. You did good work. Your country owes you. I was just doing my job. Bullshit. You risked your life every day, every night. One wrong word and they would have killed you. He held out his hand. Thank you. She took it. Her grip was firm, strong. Don't thank me yet, Your Majesty. The hard part's just starting. What hard part? We won. Did we? She gestured at the vault, at the blood, at the bodies being carried out. You just executed 20 people without trial, killed 3 mistresses, arrested half the nobility. The other half is going to scream tyranny, demand your removal, maybe even rebel.
Let them. His voice was cold, hard.
I'm done playing politics. Done pretending weakness is strength. From now on, anyone who moves against me dies, quickly, publicly, permanently. That's not how you build a kingdom. It's how you keep one. He started walking, each step agony, the wound in his side bleeding through his shirt. Get me a healer. Get me clean clothes. And get me a count of how many nobles were arrested. I want to know exactly how many enemies I have left. Your Majesty, do it. She did it. An hour later, Alaric stood in the throne room, cleaned up but not cleaned, bandaged but not healed. The wound in his side had been stitched closed, but it still bled if he moved wrong. He didn't care. The throne room was packed. Nobles, merchants, military officers. Anyone important enough to demand entry and brave enough to face the king who'd just purged half the court. They stared at him, some with fear, some with anger, some with calculation already spinning behind their eyes. Alaric sat on his throne, sword across his knees, and stared back. You're here because you want answers, he said. His voice carried through the silence. Fine. Here they are. 3 of my mistresses were traitors, bought and paid for by Lord Weston Greer and his allies. They plotted to kill me, replace me, turn this empire into their personal playground. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tonight, I executed that plot, and the plotters, Ilara Venn, Isolde Crane, Vivian Locke, all 3 are dead or condemned, along with everyone who helped them, 23 people in total, all guilty of high treason. Without trial, someone shouted from the back. You killed nobles without trial? I killed traitors. Alaric's voice was ice. They attacked me, attacked my soldiers, tried to murder me in my own palace. The evidence of their guilt is written in the blood on my walls. This is tyranny. This is survival. He stood, ignoring the pain that screamed through his side. For years, I've been soft, forgiving, willing to overlook plots and schemes because I thought mercy made me strong. I was wrong. Mercy made me vulnerable, made you think you could betray me without consequence. He drew his sword. The steel rang in the silence. That ends tonight. From this moment forward, anyone who plots against the crown dies. Anyone who schemes, betrays, or conspires dies. No trials, no second chances, no mercy. You can't, I can, I am, and I will. He pointed the sword at the crowd. This is your warning, your only warning. Serve me loyally and you'll be rewarded. Betray me and I'll personally put your head on a pike outside the palace gates. Silence. Absolute. Terrified. Now get out. All of you. Go back to your estates, your businesses, your lives. And remember that I'm watching, always watching. They left. Fast. Stumbling over each other in their hurry to get away from the king who'd just declared war on treachery itself. When the last one was gone, when the throne room was empty except for guards, Alaric sat down heavily. That went well, Seraphine said from the shadows. She'd been standing there the whole time, silent, watching. They'll rebel, half of them, maybe more. Probably. She moved into the light, stood in front of the throne. And you'll crush them, one by one, until they learn. Or until they kill me. They won't kill you. Her voice was certain, absolute. Because you're not the man they thought you were, not anymore. You're something else now, something harder, something that doesn't forgive. What am I? She smiled, cold, sharp. You're the Iron King, finally, completely, without apology. He looked at her. At this woman who'd ridden into hell to avenge her father, who'd fought beside him, bled beside him, survived beside him. What now? Now? She glanced at the empty throne room. Now you rebuild. Clean house completely. Find people you can actually trust and put them in positions of power. Root out every last conspirator, every last traitor. That could take years. Then you have years of work ahead of you. She turned to leave, paused. Your Majesty? Yeah? Your father would be proud of what you did tonight, of what you're becoming. My father would think I'm a monster. Maybe, but monsters survive. And survival is what matters now. She left. Alaric sat alone on his throne, sword across his knees, blood drying on his clothes, and stared at the empty room. Outside, dawn was breaking. The palace was waking up. Servants were cleaning blood off marble. Guards were escorting prisoners to cells. And in the courtyard, carpenters were building gallows. 23 of them. One for each traitor. One for each person who'd thought they could betray a king and live. Alaric closed his eyes. Felt the weight of the crown on his head. The weight of decisions that couldn't be undone. He'd won. Crushed the conspiracy. Saved his throne. But the cost. The cost was everything he'd thought he was. Everything he'd wanted to be. Gone. Burned away in the fires of survival. And what was left? A king without mercy. An empire without trust. A man who'd killed with his own hands and would kill again without hesitation. The Iron King. Finally. Completely. Without apology. He opened his eyes, stood, walked to the balcony that overlooked the courtyard. Below, the gallows were almost finished, tall, sturdy, built to last. By noon, they'd be decorated with corpses. By evening, the message would be clear to every noble, every merchant, every ambitious fool in the empire. Betray the king and die. Alaric smiled, cold, sharp, the smile of a man who'd crossed a line and found he didn't mind the view from the other side. Let them come, he said to the empty air. Let them plot. Let them scheme. Let them try. Behind him, footsteps. He turned. Marjorie stood there, cleaned up, professional, her face carefully neutral. Your Majesty, we've had word from the outer provinces. 3 noble houses are mobilizing troops, calling your actions illegal, demanding your removal. Which houses? Vance, Moreau, Castellan. The same ones Liana had named, the same ones in Seraphine's father's documents, Greer's allies. How many troops? Combined? Maybe 5,000. Infantry mostly, some cavalry. When will they reach the capital? If they march together, 2 weeks. Alaric nodded slowly. Processing. Planning. Good. That gives us time to prepare. Your Majesty, 5,000 is nothing compared to what I'll do to them when they get here. He turned back to the courtyard. Send word to the loyal provinces. Tell them their king calls for aid. Tell them traitors are marching on the capital, and anyone who stands with me will be rewarded beyond measure. And those who don't will be treated as traitors themselves. He looked at her. No more half measures, Marjorie. No more politics. We're at war now, real war, and I intend to win. Yes, Your Majesty. She left to carry out his orders. Alaric stood alone on the balcony, watching the sun rise over his empire, an empire that was about to tear itself apart, an empire he would hold together through blood and iron and absolute merciless will. Come on, then, he said to the distant provinces, to the nobles plotting in their estates, to anyone stupid enough to think they could take what was his. Come and try. Below, the first traitor was led to the gallows. Alara Ven, proud and silent even now. The noose went around her neck. The trapdoor opened. She fell, and the Crimson Court claimed its first victim of the new order. But not its last. Not by a long shot. Because the war, the real war, was only just. The bodies swung in the morning wind like grotesque pendulums marking time in a kingdom that had forgotten mercy. Alaric watched from the balcony as the last of the traitors dropped, the rope snapping taut, the neck breaking with a sound like dry wood splitting. 23 executions, 23 messages carved in flesh and bone that the Iron King did not forgive. But the numbness he'd felt the night before was cracking now, fissures appearing in the armor he'd built around himself. He could feel it happening, the cost settling in. The weight of what he'd done pressing down on shoulders that had carried armies but were never meant to carry this. Your Majesty. Seraphine's voice came from behind him, soft but not gentle. She'd learned there was a difference. The courtyard's clearing. You should rest.
Can't. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders all night. The noble houses are mobilizing.
Vance, Moreau, Castellan, 5,000 men marching on the capital. If I rest, I die. If you don't rest, you'll collapse before they get here. She moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could smell blood and smoke on her clothes. Neither of them had properly cleaned up. The healers said your wound needs time to... The healers can go fuck themselves. But he moved away from the balcony anyway, back into the throne room where shadows pooled in corners and the air still tasted like fear. How's Thrace? Alive, barely. Punctured lung, 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding they're still trying to stop. She followed him, her footsteps echoing. Cale says if he makes it through the next day, he'll probably survive. Probably isn't good enough. It's all we have. Alaric sank into his throne, felt the cold stone through his clothes. Every part of him hurt. The wound in his side was a constant scream. His shoulders burned from hours of fighting. His hands were so covered in cuts and bruises he could barely grip his sword. But worse than the physical pain was the other kind. The kind that came from knowing he'd just executed people who'd slept in his bed, who'd whispered in his ear, who he'd thought in some broken, desperate way he might have cared about. You're thinking about them. Seraphine's voice cut through his thoughts. The mistresses. I'm thinking about what I've become. A survivor, a king who refuses to die quietly. A murderer. He looked at his hands, still stained with blood no amount of washing would clean. I killed Vivian, Isolde, watched Ilara hang, and I felt nothing, no regret, no guilt, just nothing. Good. Seraphine sat on the steps leading to the throne, close enough to talk without servants overhearing. Guilt is what they would have wanted, proof that you're weak, that you can be manipulated through sentiment. My father would have found another way. He ruled for 30 years without mass executions. Your father ruled in different times, against different enemies. She picked at dried blood on her sleeve. The world's changed. The game's changed. You can evolve or you can die. There's no third option. What if I'm evolving into something worse than what I'm fighting? Then you're still alive to ask the question. That's more than Isolde can say. Harsh. True. The kind of truth that cut clean instead of ragged. Before Alaric could respond, footsteps echoed through the throne room. Marjorie entered, still in her intelligence officer clothes, all business and efficiency. Your Majesty, we have a problem. Just one? I'm disappointed. The 3 noble houses aren't marching together. They're splitting up. Vance is taking his forces east. Moreau's going south. Castellan's heading west. Alaric sat forward, ignoring the pain that lanced through his side. They're trying to stretch our defenses, force us to split our army. Worse, they're heading for the provincial capitals, places where they have support, where they can dig in and force a siege. Marjorie unrolled a map on the floor, weighted the corners with daggers. If they take those cities, this becomes a long war. Months, maybe years. How long until they reach their targets? Vance has the shortest route, 10 days, maybe 12. The others have 2 weeks, give or take. Alaric studied the map, his mind racing through possibilities. 3 armies, 3 directions, and he had maybe 8,000 troops loyal enough to trust with this fight. Split them 3 ways, and none would be strong enough to win. Keep them together, and 2 cities fall while he deals with 1. What about Greer? He asked. He's still alive? In the dungeons. We've been interrogating him. He's not talking, just sits there, smiling like he knows something we don't. Then make him talk. I don't care how. Use whatever methods intelligence has been saving for special occasions. Marjorie's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Your Majesty, if we torture a noble lord, even a condemned one, the other houses will use it as proof of tyranny. They're already calling me a tyrant. Might as well earn the title. He stood, started pacing despite the pain. But before you start cutting pieces off him, bring him here. I want to talk to him first.
Is that wise? Probably not. Do it anyway. She left to make it happen. Seraphine watched him pace, her dark eyes tracking his movement. What are you planning? I'm going to offer him a deal. He tried to kill you, to steal your throne. What possible deal?
Call off his allies. Order the 3 houses to stand down. In exchange, I commute his sentence from execution to exile. He'll never take it. Men like Greer would rather die than admit defeat. Then he'll die. But I have to try. Alaric stopped pacing, looked at her. You think I'm weak? That offering mercy now, after everything, is a mistake.
I think you're exhausted, hurt, and looking for a way to stop the bleeding before it becomes a river. She stood, moved closer. But mercy to men like Greer isn't kindness. It's surrender. He'll see it as proof that you're breaking, that the executions were theater, but you don't have the stomach for real war. Maybe I don't. Yes, you do. You just don't want to. She reached out, touched his face, forced him to meet her eyes. You've already crossed the line, already become the thing you were afraid of becoming. Going back now doesn't undo that. It just wastes the people who died to get you here. Her hand was warm against his cheek, steady, the first gentle thing he'd felt in what seemed like years. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right, but I still have to try. Why?
Because if I don't, I'll never know if there was another way. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded and stepped back. Then try. And when he spits in your face, when he laughs and tells you he's already won, you remember this conversation. You remember that mercy was offered and rejected. And you do what needs to be done without hesitation. I will. Good. She turned to leave, paused at the door. And Alaric, he looked up. She never used his name, always Your Majesty or nothing at all. When this is over, when the war is won and the throne is secure, we need to talk about what happens next, about what you want this kingdom to be. What I want it to be or what it has to be. Maybe they're the same thing now. Then she was gone, and Alaric was alone with his thoughts and his pain, and the growing certainty that whatever happened next would define not just his reign, but his soul. 20 minutes later, guards brought Greer into the throne room. The man looked terrible, bruised, bloody, his expensive clothes torn and filthy, but his eyes were still sharp, still calculating, and his smile when he saw Alaric was pure poison. Your Majesty, how kind of you to invite me to court. I was getting bored in my accommodations. Sit down, Greer. I'd rather stand, thank you. The chairs in the dungeon aren't particularly comfortable, and I've developed a distaste for sitting. Alaric gestured to the guards. They forced Greer into a chair, hard enough to make him grunt. Better. Now we can talk. About what? My impending execution? I assure you, I'm quite prepared to die. I've made my peace with whatever comes next. I'm sure you have, but I'm not here to discuss your death. I'm here to discuss your life. Greer's smile faltered, just for a second. I'm listening. 3 noble houses are marching on the capital. Your allies, your co-conspirators, 5,000 men who think they're coming to save you and restore some kind of rightful order. Alaric leaned forward. Call them off. Why would I do that? Because if you do, I'll commute your sentence. Exile instead of execution. You leave the empire, tonight, with whatever wealth you can carry, and you never come back. Greer laughed, actually laughed, the sound echoing through the throne room like breaking glass. You think I'd take that deal? You think I'd abandon my allies, my plans, everything I've worked toward for years just to save my own skin? I think you're a survivor, same as me, and survivors know when the game is lost. The game isn't lost, boy. It's just beginning. Greer leaned back despite the guards flanking him. You killed my mistresses, executed my agents, arrested my allies, and you think that's victory? That's just the opening move. Then what's the end game? You, broken, alone, surrounded by enemies so numerous you can't kill them all. His smile widened. You're not a king anymore, Alaric. You're a tyrant, and tyrants always fall. Always. It's just a matter of time. Is that what you tell yourself? That all this death, all this destruction is justified because you're bringing down a tyrant? I tell myself that the empire needs a ruler who understands restraint, who can be controlled, who won't execute nobles without trial or threaten entire houses with extinction for daring to question his authority. Greer's eyes glittered. You've made yourself into everything your father fought against. He unified the kingdoms through diplomacy and strength. You're tearing them apart through paranoia and violence. My father never had to deal with traitors in his own bed. Your father never put them there in the first place. The words landed like blows. You filled your palace with beautiful poison and acted surprised when it killed you. This is your fault, boy, all of it, from beginning to end. Alaric felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, not rage, just cold, perfect certainty. You're right. Greer blinked. What? I said you're right. I made mistakes, trusted the wrong people. Let sentiment cloud judgment. Built a court that was more brothel than government. He stood, moved down the steps until he was face to face with the man who'd tried to destroy him. But here's the difference between you and me, Greer. I learned. I adapted. I became what I needed to be to survive. And you? You're still playing the same game, still thinking politics and manipulation will win, still believing that because you've been doing this longer, you're smarter. I am smarter. I would have won if not for that intelligence bitch you had in my bed. You would have won if I'd been the man you thought I was. Weak, sentimental, too afraid of what people think to do what's necessary. Alaric's smile was cold. But I'm not that man anymore. And your armies, the 3 houses marching to save you, they're going to die. Every single one of them, because I'm going to meet them in the field, and I'm going to crush them so thoroughly that the word rebellion becomes a curse for the next 100 years. Big words from a man who can barely stand. I'll stand long enough to watch you hang. Then you'll watch alone. My allies won't surrender, won't stop. They believe in what we're doing, in the future we're building. A future where you control a puppet king, and they divide the empire like spoils of war. That's not a future. That's theft dressed in noble language. Alaric turned away, gestured to the guards. Take him back. Let him rot until I have time to build a gallows big enough for a duke. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. He looked back over his shoulder. And Greer? When those 3 armies reach their destinations? When they dig in and prepare for a siege? I'm going to bring the full weight of the empire down on them. I'm going to show them what real tyranny looks like. And when they break, when they surrender, when they beg for mercy, I'm going to give them the same mercy you showed my father's memory. None. The guards dragged Greer out, the old duke screaming threats and curses that echoed through empty halls. Alaric stood alone in the throne room, breathing hard, the wound in his side bleeding through fresh bandages. That went about as well as expected, Marjorie said, appearing from the shadows where she'd been watching. You knew he wouldn't take the deal. I knew, but I had to offer. Why? He doesn't deserve mercy. Not for him, for me. Alaric moved back to his throne, sank into it like a man drowning. Needed to know I tried, that when I burned those armies to ash and salt the earth they marched on, it wasn't because I wanted to, it was because there was no other choice. And now you know. Now I know. He looked at her. How long until our forces are ready to march? 3 days, maybe 4. Commander Kale's pulling together the loyal regiments. We'll have maybe 6,000. Good soldiers. Veterans mostly. 6 against 5, not great odds when they have defensive positions. No. But we have you. And right now your name is worth another 1,000 men. She moved closer. The soldiers know what happened here. Know you personally killed traitors who tried to destroy the kingdom. They're calling you the Iron King, saying you're the first real warrior to sit that throne in generations. Is that what they're saying, or what you're telling them to say? Does it matter? Morale is morale, and morale wins wars as much as steel. She was right. Cold, calculated, but right. Fine. Spread the legend. Make me into whatever monster they need me to be. But Marjorie? He met her eyes. When this is over, when the throne is secure and the enemies are dead, I'm cleaning house again. Everyone, every noble, every advisor, every person in this palace who might have even thought about betraying me, gone, exiled or executed, I don't care which. That would leave you with almost no one. Then I'll rebuild with people too terrified or too loyal to stab me in the back. He stood, started toward his chambers, each step agony. Get me a list. Names, families, holdings, everything. We'll go through it together, decide who lives and who doesn't. Your Majesty, that's an order, not a suggestion.
He stopped, turned. I'm done being soft, Marjorie. Done being the king who forgives and forgets. From now on, loyalty is rewarded beyond measure and betrayal is punished beyond imagination. That's the new rule, the only rule. Yes, Your Majesty. He made it to his chambers before collapsing. The wound had opened completely, blood soaking through his shirt. Healers swarmed, shouting orders, pressing cloths against the tear. Alaric let them work, staring at the ceiling, feeling his heartbeat slow, his vision dim. This was how kings died. Not in battle, not in glory, but in beds surrounded by healers who couldn't stop the bleeding, betrayed by bodies that couldn't keep up with the demands of ruling. He thought about his father, about the old king who died in his sleep, peacefully, surrounded by people who loved him. Lucky bastard.
Your Majesty, a healer's voice, urgent. You need to stay awake. If you sleep now, you might not wake up. Then let me sleep. Your Majesty, I said let me sleep. I'm tired. So God's damn tired. His eyes closed despite the shouting, despite hands shaking him, despite everything. And in the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw them. Isolde, Vivian, Alara, Liana, even Marjorie, though she was still alive. All the women who'd shared his bed and his trust and his secrets. All the women he'd killed or condemned or used. They stood in the darkness, watching him with eyes that saw everything and forgave nothing. I'm sorry, he whispered, though he didn't know if he meant it. They didn't answer, just kept watching, judging, waiting. When Alaric woke, the sun was setting. 3 days had passed. 3 days of fever and blood and healers fighting to keep him alive. He sat up slowly, feeling weakness in every muscle. The wound in his side was closed but tender, the stitches pulling when he moved. Your Majesty. Seraphine's voice. She'd been sitting beside his bed, reading. Welcome back? How long? 3 days. You nearly died, twice. She set the book aside. The healers say you're too stubborn to kill properly. Good to know. He swung his legs off the bed, stood on shaking legs. The armies, Vance, Moreau, Castellan, where are they? Reached their destinations. All 3 cities are under siege. Light resistance so far, but it's only been 2 days. And our forces? Ready to march. Waiting for you. She moved to help him, but he waved her off. Kael says he can lead them if you're not strong enough. I'm strong enough. He wasn't, but he'd learned years ago that strength was as much about will as muscle. Get me armor, something practical, and get me a horse that won't throw me the first time I mount. Alaric, that's an order, Seraphine. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded and left. Alone, Alaric moved to the window, looked out over the city. 3 days. 3 days of unconsciousness while the kingdom burned. But it was still standing, still his, and he'd be damned if some ambitious nobles took it from him now. An hour later, he stood in the courtyard, armor strapped on over bandages, sword at his hip. 6,000 soldiers assembled in ranks, their faces hard, their eyes sharp. Kael approached, looked him over, grunted. You look like shit, Your Majesty. Feel worse, but I'll live. Long enough to win this? Long enough to see it through. Alaric raised his voice, addressing the army. You know why we're here. 3 noble houses think they can take what's mine. Think they can carve up the empire and rule it like their personal fiefdom. They're wrong, and we're going to prove it. The soldiers roared approval. We ride in 1 hour. Destination, the eastern capital where House Vance has dug in. We hit them fast, hard. Show no mercy to anyone who stands against us. This is a war of survival. Either we win completely or we die trying. There's no middle ground. More roaring, swords rattling against shields. Mount up, move out. And remember, you're not just soldiers anymore. You're the Iron King's army. That means something. Make it mean fear to our enemies. They scattered, moving with purpose, with fury. Seraphine appeared beside him, also in armor, a sword at her hip. I'm coming with you. Like hell you are. You don't get a vote. I came here to avenge my father. That vengeance isn't complete until everyone who helped kill him is dead, Greer's allies included. You could die. So could you. Difference is, I'm not stupid enough to ride into battle with a half-healed gut wound and delusions of immortality. She smiled, hard and cold. So either I ride with the army or I follow behind it. Your choice. He wanted to argue, wanted to send her somewhere safe, but there was no safe anymore. Not in this kingdom, not in this war. Fine, stay close to me. If things go bad, you run. No heroics. Same to you. They mounted horses, led the army out of the capital, 6,000 strong, moving east toward a city under siege and an enemy that thought walls would protect them. The ride took 8 days. 8 days of hard marching, sleeping in armor, eating cold rations. 8 days of Alaric's wound screaming every time the horse moved wrong, every time he had to mount or dismount. But he showed no weakness, rode at the front, spoke to soldiers, reminded them what they were fighting for. By the time they reached the eastern capital, the army was a single organism, united, focused, ready to kill or die on command. The city sat behind high walls, banners of House Vance flying from every tower. 3,000 men inside, maybe more, all prepared for a siege they thought would last months. They were wrong. Alaric studied the defenses from a ridge overlooking the city, Kyle beside him, Marjorie on his other side, Seraphine just behind. They've blocked the main gates, reinforced the walls, put archers on every tower. Kyle's assessment was clinical. A direct assault would cost us half our force. Then we don't assault directly. Alaric pointed to the eastern wall. That section's older, built 200 years ago before modern siege engines. The stone's weaker. We bring up the battering rams, hit it from 3 points at once, spread their defenders thin. That'll take time. They'll see us coming. Let them. I want them to see. Want them to know what's coming. He turned in his saddle, looked at his army. We attack at dawn. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow, we show them what happens to traitors. That night, Alaric couldn't sleep. The wound ached. His mind raced. He walked through the camp, checking soldiers, making sure supplies were ready. Seraphine found him near the command tent, staring at the distant city lights. Can't sleep either? Too much to think about. Or too much to forget. She moved to stand beside him. You know, some of those men in there aren't traitors. Some are just soldiers following orders. Farmers' sons who got conscripted. I know. And you're going to kill them anyway. If they stand between me and Vance, yes. He didn't look at her, couldn't. This isn't about justice anymore, Seraphine. It's about survival. Mine. Theirs. The kingdom's. And in survival, innocent people die. That's just the cost. That's what tyrants say. Then I'm a tyrant. He finally turned to face her. I've accepted that. Made peace with it. The question is, can you? She was quiet for a long time, then, I don't know, but I'm still here. Still fighting beside you. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. He reached out, touched her face like she'd touched his days ago. When this is over, win or lose, I want you to stay. Help me rebuild. Be the voice that reminds me I'm human when everything else tells me I'm not. That's a heavy responsibility. I know, but I think you can handle it. Why? Because you've seen me at my worst, covered in blood, killing people I used to share a bed with, becoming everything I swore I'd never be. And you're still standing here. She turned her face into his hand, closed her eyes. Don't make me regret it. I'll try not to. They stood like that for a while. Two people who'd been through hell together, finding comfort in shared survival. Then dawn came, and with it, war. The assault began with fire. Alaric had his engineers launch burning pitch over the walls, targeting the wooden structures inside. Smoke rose. Screams echoed. The defenders rushed to put out fires. While they were distracted, 3 battering rams rolled forward, protected by shields manned by soldiers who knew they might die in the next 5 minutes. The rams hit the eastern wall like thunder. Once, twice, 3 times. Cracks appeared in the old stone. Arrows rained down from the towers. Men fell, were replaced. The rams kept pounding. On the 7th impact, the wall collapsed. Alaric led the charge personally, sword drawn, roaring orders that were lost in the chaos of battle. The defenders met them in the breach. Steel on steel, blood on stone. Men killing men because politics had failed and violence was all that remained. Alaric fought like he was possessed. No technique, no grace,
Just brutal, efficient murder. He killed a man with a sword thrust through the throat, another with a dagger to the kidney, a third by smashing his skull with a shield edge. Around him, his soldiers pushed forward, overwhelming the defenders through sheer numbers and fury. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, when the last defender had thrown down his sword and begged for quarter, Alaric stood in the city square surrounded by bodies and called for Lord Vance. They brought him out in chains, an old man, proud, defiant. Alaric Voss, the boy who thinks he's a king. Lord Vance, the traitor who thought he could win. I still can. This city is just one battle. Moreau and Castellan still hold their positions, still have armies. You can't be everywhere at once. I don't need to be. I just need to make an example here that's loud enough for everyone else to hear. What kind of example? Alaric gestured to his soldiers. Bring me every man who fought against us today, every soldier, every officer, everyone who raised a blade for House Vance. They did. Lined them up in the square, 300 men, some wounded, all terrified. Your Majesty, Kael said quietly, if you execute them all—
I'm not executing them. Alaric raised his voice so everyone could hear. I'm giving them a choice. Swear fealty to me, right here, right now. Join my army and fight against the remaining traitors, or refuse and hang with the Lord who led you to this. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Then one man stepped forward, young, bleeding from a cut across his face. I'll swear. Kneel. He did. Put his hand over his heart, spoke the oath. One by one the others followed. 300 men swearing loyalty to the king they'd just tried to kill. When it was done, when the last oath was spoken, Alaric turned to Vance. Your men have more sense than you do. They're cowards. They're survivors. Learn the difference. He drew his sword. Any last words? Just one. You think this makes you strong? Forcing men to choose between loyalty and death? That's not strength. That's terrorism. Call it what you want. I call it effective. The sword fell. Vance's head rolled across the square. Alaric cleaned his blade on the dead lord's cloak, sheathed it, and turned to face his expanded army. We march in 2 hours. Destination? The southern capital. House Moreau is next, and they're going to learn the same lesson. Bend the knee or break the neck. There's no third option anymore. The march south took 6 days. Word of Vance's execution traveled faster. By the time they reached Moreau's city, the gates were already open. Lady Moreau met them in the courtyard. Her army laid down their weapons, her banners torn down and replaced with royal colors. Your Majesty. She knelt, trembling. House Moreau surrenders. We ask for mercy. Why should I give it? You marched against your king, conspired with traitors, tried to tear the empire apart. We were deceived. Greer told us you'd become a tyrant, that the executions were proof you'd gone mad. We thought we were saving the kingdom. By destroying it? By replacing you with someone more stable. Alaric laughed, short, bitter. Stability. Is that what Greer promised? A nice, controllable puppet who'd do what he was told? Yes. And you believed him. We wanted to believe him. The alternative— She looked up, her eyes wet. The alternative was accepting that the empire we'd known was dying, that the old ways of politics and diplomacy were finished, that violence was the only language left. It is the only language, but you're learning. He gestured for her to stand. House Moreau will surrender all lands and titles. Your wealth goes to the crown. Your army joins mine. And you, personally, will spend the rest of your life in a monastery, praying for forgiveness I'll never grant. And my family? Can swear fealty or share your fate. Their choice. She nodded, tears streaming now. Thank you, Your Majesty. Don't thank me. I'm not being merciful. I'm being practical. Killing you creates martyrs. Exiling you creates examples. He turned away. Get her out of my sight. 2 cities down, 1 to go. The march west took another 8 days. By the time they reached Castellan's holdings, Alaric's army had swollen to over 10,000. Soldiers from Vance and Moreau's forces, all wearing royal colors now, all sworn to a king they'd tried to kill weeks before. Duke Castellan wasn't as smart as Moreau or as proud as Vance. He tried to run. Alaric's cavalry caught him 20 miles from the city, dragged him back in chains, threw him at the king's feet. Please, Your Majesty, I was forced. Greer threatened my family. I had no choice. Everyone has a choice. Alaric looked down at the man groveling in the dirt. You chose wrong. Now you pay the price. Please, hang him publicly in the city square. Let everyone see what happens to cowards who betray their king. They did. That afternoon, while the whole city watched, Duke Castellan died begging, crying, promising information he didn't have in exchange for mercy that wouldn't come. Alaric watched it all from horseback, his face stone, his heart ice. When it was done, when the body stopped twitching, he addressed the crowd. This is over. The rebellion is crushed. The traitors are dead or exiled. Anyone who still thinks they can take what's mine, step forward now. I'll give you the same choice I gave these men. Bend or break. No one stepped forward. Good. Now go back to your lives. Serve your king. And remember, loyalty is rewarded beyond measure. Betrayal is punished beyond imagination. That's the new law. The only law. He rode out of the city that night, leading his army back toward the capital, toward a throne that was finally, completely, absolutely his. The journey home took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of processing what he'd done, what he'd become. Seraphine rode beside him most of the way, silent, understanding that some things didn't need words. On the last night before they reached the capital, they made camp on a hill overlooking the city. Alaric stood apart from the army, watching lights flicker in windows where people lived normal lives. You did it, Seraphine said, joining him. Won the war, secured the throne, became the king they needed you to be. I became a monster. You became what survival demanded. There's a difference. Is there? He turns to look at her. I killed women I slept with, executed nobles without trial, forced armies to swear loyalty at sword point. That's not a king. That's a warlord. It's both, and it's neither. You're something new, something this empire hasn't seen before. She moved closer. The question is, what do you do now? Keep killing until there's no one left to oppose you, or start building something worth ruling? I don't know how to build anymore. Only destroy. Then learn. You've spent months becoming the Iron King. Now spend years becoming something more. She took his hand. Let me help. Let Marjorie help. Let the people who survived this hell with you help rebuild something from the ashes. And if I can't, if this is all I am now, then at least you'll have tried. That's more than Greer can say, more than the Mistresses can say. They wanted power for its own sake. You want it to protect something. That difference matters. He looked at their joined hands. Hers was smaller, but just as scarred, just as marked by violence. Stay with me. Not as a mistress, not as a political ally. Just stay. Be the person who reminds me why any of this mattered. I will. But Alaric, she squeezed his hand. You have to forgive yourself for what you did, what you became. Carrying that guilt will destroy you faster than any enemy. I don't know if I can. Then let me carry some of it. Let the people who love you carry some of it. You don't have to bear this alone anymore. Love. The word hit him like a physical blow. You don't love me. You barely know me. I know you well enough, seen you at your best and worst, fought beside you, bled beside you, and I'm still here. She smiled, sad but real. Maybe that's not love, but it's close enough for now. He pulled her close, held her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had turned to smoke and mirrors. Thank you, he whispered, for riding 3 weeks alone, for risking everything, for not giving up on me when I'd given up on myself. Thank yourself. You're the one who survived. I just helped. They stood like that while the stars wheeled overhead and the camp settled into sleep. Two people who'd been through hell and somehow found each other on the other side. The next morning, they rode into the capital. The streets were lined with people, cheering, celebrating, calling out the name of the Iron King who'd crushed the rebellion and saved the empire. Alaric waved mechanically, playing the part, but inside he felt nothing, just emptiness, vast and cold and absolute, until he looked at Seraphine riding beside him and saw her smile, and felt something crack in the ice around his heart. Maybe not love, not yet, but something close, something worth protecting, something worth becoming more than a monster for. They reached the palace, dismounted, walked through corridors that had been scrubbed clean of blood but still smelled like death. The throne room was empty except for Marjorie and a handful of advisors. Your Majesty. Marjorie bowed. The Empire is secure. All 3 rebellions crushed. The remaining nobles have sent messages of loyalty. Greer. She paused. Greer died this morning. Poisoned himself in his cell before we could execute him. Coward's way out. Better than he deserved. She handed him a stack of papers. These are oaths of fealty from every major house, signed, witnessed, binding. Alaric looked at them. Names and seals and promises that meant nothing if the people making them decided to break them. But it was a start. Good, file them. And start drawing up a new code of laws. I want it clear, crystal clear. What loyalty means, what betrayal costs. No ambiguity, no room for interpretation. That will take time. We have time. For the first time in months, we actually have time. He moved to the throne, sank into it, felt the weight settle on shoulders that had carried too much for too long. Now get out, all of you. I want to sit here and remember what peace feels like. They left, all except Seraphine. She stood in front of the throne, looking at him with those dark, intelligent eyes. What now? Now we rebuild. Like you said, build something worth ruling, something worth protecting. He held out his hand. Help me? She took it, climbed the steps, sat beside him on the throne that was built for one, but somehow held 2. Always. They sat together in the empty throne room, 2 survivors in a palace full of ghosts, and watched the sun set through the western windows. The war was over. The throne was secure. The Iron King had won. But the cost would haunt him forever. In his sleep, in his memories, in the faces of women who died by his hand or his order. But he'd survived. Against all odds, against all enemies, and that had to count for something, had to mean something. Outside, the capital celebrated. Inside, Alaric held Seraphine's hand and tried to remember what hope felt like. It took a long time, but eventually, slowly, he found it. Not in victory, not in power, but in the quiet strength of the woman beside him, and the uncertain promise of a future they'd build together. The Crimson Court was dead. Long live the Iron King, and the woman who'd helped him remember he was more than iron, more than a crown, more than the blood on his hands, human, flawed, alive.